Hey folks, it's Kodey Stoffer with Playmakers Corner, here to tell you about Code Red Coaching. Competing in athletics means you've lifted the weights, you've watched film, and you've got the passion. Problem is, that's what everyone else in the state has done. Perfect your game by honing in on your mental performance with Code Red Coaching. Whether you are a team or an individual, Code Red Coaching has the tools to create mentally solid habits and set up you or your team for success. Find Code Red Coaching at coderedcoaching.com or call 720-979-1914 to learn more today. That's coderedcoaching.com or 720-979-1914 today. Now back to the show.
All right, welcome back to the Playmakers Corner podcast. This is episode 206. I'm your host for today, Simon Villanos, aka Coach V, and we got this Week 7 Colorado High School football, of course, for the 2022 season recap here for y'all. Hey, it's been a couple weeks here. I let Kodey do the episode the last 2 weeks, and so I got this one right here. But this weekend might have been high-key the best weekend for Colorado high school football this season, if I'm being completely honest with you. Obviously, there will be better weekends, hopefully, as playoffs approach here in less than a month now and whatnot. But this last weekend, we had a lot of great matchups, a lot of interesting storylines, and so here on this episode, you know what it is. We're going to recap these games, talk about most of the key games that happened, talk about playoff chances as well for teams as we go down the line here, and talk about the scores. We'll talk about the games we attended. We attended a couple games, two big-time ranked games between two teams vying for a spot here in the top 10 or top 8 here going forward. And then we went to two big-time rivalry games on opposite sides of the state. Then after that, we got power rankings per usual. You know, we have a couple of shakeups here and there. It'll give you a good idea of, you know, the top dogs in each of these classifications and whatnot. And then we got Playmakers of the Week, brought to you by Code Red Coaching, by the way. And yeah, and then Grove's women's high school flag football update, as this weekend will be a big one for that. But without further ado, let's go ahead and hop into this thing. Let's talk about Thursday night games, October 6th. All right, let's get it. So first things first, we are going to start in 5A here and work our way down. But we got Overland versus Northglenn. Overland takes care of business. Big time league game here, winning 48-6. Then we got Doherty versus Denver East here in that same league, I believe. Doherty wins 28-16, improving to 4-3 on the season. Now Doherty, they'll get Westminster, Northglenn, and Overland to end their season. Winning out will probably win them their league and give them a spot in the playoffs. I think that's pretty much a guaranteed. Now, if they win 2 out of those 3 games, it would depend what it is. I think beating Overland will be important, as I believe they are right next to them, or if not, the top dogs in that league. So we'll see how that goes. You know, maybe it'll be a little bit more up in the air, but winning league will be important for whichever of these teams want to make it to the playoffs here. So there you go there. Now we got Chatfield versus Pomona. Chatfield rolling, wins 45-17, moving to 3-4. Now Chatfield, they have Lakewood, Ralston Valley, and Columbine to end the season. Not an easy schedule by any means here at the end, but assuming they beat Lakewood, which I feel like they should, you know, getting a win over Columbine or Ralston Valley should guarantee them a spot in the playoffs. Now if they lose to both, they'll be 4-6. I don't know. I mean, they do have kind of a tougher schedule, so maybe that'll bail them out and put them in the playoffs, but it'll be, you know, the back end of the playoffs. Like, they'll be on the bubble for sure, but I truly believe if they beat one of these teams and at least go 5-5 on the season, then although the record is on the bubble, they're at 500, I think they have enough quality games played and a quality dub here to go ahead and get into the playoffs. But it's do or die for Chatfield now, you know, and so we'll see if they make it or not. They are definitely on the bubble. Now, speaking of 5A teams and being on the bubble here, we have Grandview versus Arapahoe. Grandview obviously ranked over Arapahoe, and Arapahoe upsets Grandview 28-21, receiving touchdowns to Andrew Smart, Charlie Cook, and Charlie Eckhart, and Eli Anderson would actually put Arapahoe up 28-0 at halftime, taking a dominant lead. Now, look, Grandview would try to get back into this game. They would score 21 points, but they would come up short. They would be stopped on a very critical 4th and 3 situation with 2 minutes left, and once they couldn't get that was a wrap, as Arapahoe wins 28-21 in a big time upset win for them in Centennial League play. Now, Grandview is basically a lock for the playoffs, basically probably a lock for maybe being a top 12 team in the playoffs. We'll see how the rest of the season goes, but they should make the playoffs. Arapahoe, on the other hand, we weren't sure if they were going to make the playoffs, but honestly, if they get through league and they go at least 500, they'll have a very good case for the playoffs, as they've played almost all playoff teams here on the schedule, with the exception of maybe 2 teams. So they're in a pretty good spot here. They're 4-3 right now, so just keep an eye on Arapahoe here. Now, moving on though, we got Fairview versus Poudre. This would be another key league game. Fairview would go ahead and escape with the win, 33-31 over Poudre. No need really to go into it. I mean, they did what they had to do, and they won. And that's honestly all that matters at this point. Fairview is 6-1 right now. Poudre 5-2 right now, so it's not like either team is out of the playoffs. Both teams are pretty much going to make the playoffs. It'll just really depends on who gets, a top seed, a top 12 seed in the playoffs, as moving forward, they'll have to play the likes of Fossil Ridge. I think for both teams, that'll be very important in deciding who will win league. Speaking of Fossil Ridge, they go ahead and take care of Boulder 45-10, doing their thing here. Still no Tyler Kubat. I don't know if he is done for the season. From what I've heard, it doesn't sound like he is done for the season, but it doesn't matter, as the sophomore quarterback Colton Pollock continues to find a way to get it done. Here in this game, he went 7-11 for 125 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks, so a little sloppy there over the passing, but made it up on the ground here. Ran for 107 rushing yards and a touchdown. Jeff Toshkoff, another sophomore, doing his thing as well, still 80 yards and 2 touchdowns on this game, as Fossil Ridge takes care of business against Boulder. And like I said, should be making the playoffs here, but these matchups against Fairview at the end, and Poudre, I believe, will help decide who may get a top seed in the 5A playoffs. Moving on, though, last 5A matchup I want to talk about, Thunder Ridge versus Castleview. Thunder Ridge gets it done, 35-6, a blowout win here. Cooper Keir, another very good game here, 20 of 28, 262 passing yards, 3 touchdowns to 1 interception. Also had 7 carries for 60 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown, doing a good job there, taking care of the ball. Richard Okuno had a very good game here, one of his best of the season, 10 receptions, 139 receiving yards and a touchdown. And then Caden Shouse continuing his reign of terror, 8 tackles, 4 tackles for loss, and 2 sacks, as Thunder Ridge continues to be undefeated at 7-0 here. They play Highlands Ranch next week before having 2 very important matchups against Valor Christian and Rock Canyon that should help determine whether they'll get a top seed in the playoffs, a top 12 seed in the playoffs or not. On the other hand, I'm pretty sure they just ended Castleview's season after this regular season. Castleview now dropping to a kind of disappointing 1-6 here. I don't believe they will be able to make the playoffs here, even if they do win out. So there you go. Moving on to 4A here, still on Thursday. Broomfield versus Aurora Central. No Cole LaCrue for this game, but go ahead and play that That's So Raven theme here, because we got a glimpse into the future here with C.T. Worley getting his first varsity start of his career. And, C.T. is a quarterback that we've been watching train and work hard basically since he was a freshman for a minute now, and now I think before that, really, if you wanna go back that far, and we have the receipts for it, and so we were very happy to well, not too happy, but happy to see him get a chance to go play against Aurora Central. Cola Crew getting much needed rest after tearing it up the last couple weeks here, but no worries here. Broomfield goes ahead and wins 42-0. CT Worley, like I said, in his first varsity start, 17 of 24, 268 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns. Did throw 1 pick, but it's fine as Broomfield continues to stay undefeated at 7-0. Great job by the defense as well. They had 2 interceptions and I believe 2 fumble recoveries as they shut down Aurora Central and might have just ended their playoff hopes here. Aurora Central is now 2-4. They don't face an easier schedule. It's still league play, and so we'll see what happens with them. Broomfield, though, for sure a lock in the playoffs and probably a lock for a top 12 seed here. Broomfield gets Adam City and then a big matchup with Fruita Monument on the 21st. That's one that we may need to go out to potentially. We'll see. And then they also get Heritage at the end, who is looking to put together a run of their own and make the playoffs for the first time in a minute. Speaking of Heritage, they go ahead and beat Adam City 42-0. They sit in a great spot at 4-2. Their next 3 games are against Stanley Lake, a very tough squad, Aurora Central, and then Broomfield. At this point, I would say one more win guarantees them a spot in the playoffs for the first time since 2019, where they had that beast that was Terrence Ferguson, who's now balling out for Oregon right now, and so that'll be big time for them. They should, even if they do lose the rest of their games, which I don't think will happen, they will have a good argument for the playoffs regardless. But like I said, one more win guarantees them a spot in the playoffs. Now, where in the playoffs will be the more interesting question, and so we'll see what happens. Like I said, that Broomfield game will be key for them. Moving on, though, we got Dakota Ridge and Bear Creek, another very competitive league here. Dakota Ridge keeping their playoff hopes alive, more than alive, really, as they completely obliterate Bear Creek 63-28 behind a 20-carry, 191-yard, 5 rushing touchdown, and then 1 reception for 36-yard performance from the senior stud running back, Noah Triplett. Absolutely going ballistic in this game here. A game that Dakota Ridge frankly needed to win to keep their playoff hopes alive. So there you go. Blake Palladino also played a very clean game here, going 7 of 9, only missed 2 passes for 130 passing yards and a touchdown. Also ran 10 times for 93 rushing yards and a touchdown. Good performance from him as well. Dakota Ridge moves to 3-4. Now, if they win out against Golden, Grand Junction, and Stanley Lake, they should definitely make the playoffs. But Golden and Stanley Lake will put up a fight. Stanley Lake, they know what they have over there, but they're coached extremely tough. They're going to play you tough and close, especially knowing that they could potentially end your season there. That is definitely a game to take seriously. And then you got Golden. Golden is the team that can beat y'all. Played them close last year. They still got Giselle Riley the fourth over there, as Golden has been surging forward as well, trying to make the playoffs, potentially take your playoff spot in the playoffs. And so we'll see what happens there, but Dakota Ridge will continue to, they'll need to continue to get big wins here. Beating Bear Creek by this much will go a long way in helping them down the road, though. So there you go. Now, Bear Creek, on the other hand, they're still 4-3. Now they get Grand Junction, Stanley Lake, and Ponderosa to end the season here. Winning 2 of those 3 would put them in the playoffs. If they go 5-5, there's a good chance they make it, but there are no guarantees unless that one win is against Ponderosa, unless one of those wins is against Ponderosa. So we'll see, but no, they shouldn't have to panic right now. If you're Bear Creek, they're probably still in a good spot to make the playoffs. So there you go. Moving on, though, Grand Junction versus Fruita Monument. Fruita Monument bounces back and blows out Grand Junction, as they should. 35-14. They improve to 5-2, and they pull Aurora Central next week, and then Broomfield after that, which will probably be for league. And basically, if they beat Broomfield, then they guarantee a spot in the top 12 here, I would think. Moving on though, Liberty versus Centaurus. Liberty beats them 20-14, and Liberty, in a surprising fashion, 5-2 with wins over Sierra, Gateway, which was a forfeit, Hinckley, Palmer, and now Centaurus here. Now Liberty, they get Thomas Jefferson, Thornton, and Widefield next. Not the easiest schedule left here, but in a very good spot. They might have a chance to make the playoffs for the first time in a while. I'm just gonna throw that out there. I think this might be the best record Liberty has had since I played for them back in the day, back in 2015. That was a while ago. I'm aging myself there, but whatever. There you go. There. So keep an eye on Liberty here. Thomas Jefferson, Thornton, Widefield, but all tough teams. So we'll see. Moving on though, Englewood versus Alameda. Englewood wins 40-14, moves to 4-2. Now they got games against TCA, Denver West, and Kent Denver to end the season. Winning the Denver West and Kent Denver games will be key to making the playoffs. If I'm being completely honest with you, I don't know how good their chances are at beating TCA, but it would never hurt to beat the undefeated team and beat the number one team in 2A. So we'll see about that. But like I said, winning 2 of those last 3 games will go a long way in making the playoffs for Englewood. And last but not least, we have Banning Lewis Academy versus Rocky Ford, and they go ahead and take care of business, winning 52-12. Really, as they should. If they lost this game, then they're not making the playoffs, I don't think. But Banning Lewis Academy goes to 5-2. Rocky Ford definitely out of the playoff picture at 0-6. Now, this is where it gets interesting for Banning Lewis Academy. They're going to have to play their best football possible, because for them, basically the playoffs start now. They get Colorado Springs Christian this week. That's a game that'll be a big one for both of those teams. They have to win that one. Then they get Rye. That'll probably be for league. And if they want to make the playoffs for the first time ever, they gotta win league. That's just my opinion here. So they got to beat them. That's on Saturday, October 22. That'll be a big time game that they will host at home. And so that'll be big for them. And so if they win these next 2 games, Banning Lewis Academy against Colorado Springs Christian and Rye, then at this point, they basically punched their way into the playoffs. They really shouldn't lose to Ellicott at the end of the season. That's just my opinion. But if they win 2 of these last 3 here, they should make the playoffs. Ideally, though, these next 2 games will be the ones that decide it for them. So we will see what happens. Real quick, though, Chase Real, 7 carries, 81 rushing yards, 4 touchdowns, and a great performance against Rocky Ford. He's like that. Oh, plus a 13-yard reception. So there you go there. Banning Lewis Academy keeps it going as they tried to make the playoffs. All right, now the last Thursday night game I want to talk about is a game that we went to, myself and Kodey. Evergreen versus Green Mountain. Both of these teams in the same league, top teams in 3A. I believe Green Mountain was tied for second, and Evergreen was 6th in our PMC rankings. So a pretty big matchup, and this is a game where, winning this one will definitely be a step forward in deciding who wins this league. Not quite a league championship because Littleton exists, but it would be a step forward in deciding who's the league champion. And so let's talk about it because it was an instant thriller. Evergreen starts with the ball here. They try to get some things going, but unfortunately they go 3 and out. And so they punt it, but Green Mountain muffs the punt. So this is basically a long pass, and Evergreen recovers the punt here. And so they get a first down and take over on the Green Mountain 39-yard line here. Now, couple plays and they try to throw the ball, throw a couple of short passes here. They do get in a 4th and 5 situation, but no worries here. Tommy Paholski finds his receiver. I believe it's number 3, Kyle Solowitz here, who goes ahead and gets a nice first down. But unfortunately, there is a fumble here. Evergreen recovers it, but it kind of puts them back pretty far here. Not the greatest thing to happen to them, and that kind of kills the vibe of this drive. And so it's 4th and 8, after a short pass, and Evergreen decides to kick a field goal, and it's good. they take the 3-0 lead with about 8 minutes 28 seconds left. Now Green Mountain, they take over on the 28 here. Couple of short runs by DeGrazia and Wallace. Later, it is 3rd and 5 here. Now an encroachment penalty call would make it a first down, so this drive keeps going. But then a false start before they could even get the snap off makes it 1st and 15. But no worries. Anthony DeGrazia, he gets a nice 5-yard gain. Another run by 3 yards goes for a nice gain, but there is a penalty, and so that makes it 2nd and 25 instead. They go ahead and call a draw play, Green Mountain does, and so it's 3rd and 15. And then an incomplete pass will basically bring up a punt and a 3 and out. But Green Mountain, they punt the ball, and it's Evergreen's turn to go ahead and muff a punt, and Green Mountain takes over. So just like Evergreen's drive started, Green Mountain's is going the same way here, and so they take over on the 30 going in, and so Zach Wallace on the keeper. Right after that gets another first down. That puts them on the 29 here. And then Anthony DeGrazia would end this drive with a 29-yard rushing touchdown, making it 6-3 Green Mountain. They would miss the PAT here, which would be key moving forward. There's about 4 minutes, 46 seconds left here as Evergreen takes over on the 35-yard line. By the way, left in the first quarter, so there you go. They run the ball here. They're trying to run the ball, but unfortunately, it brings out basically a 3 and out, and so Evergreen elects to punt it. But as they punt it, there's a 3rd straight drop here. Dropped punt here, which puts Evergreen on the 19 for a first down as they would recover it and keep their drive alive. So there you go there. Now, couple plays later, they're trying to run the ball. They're just not getting anything. Green Mountain playing very tough defense. And so Evergreen once again brings out the field goal unit. They tried to kick it, but Green Mountain deflects it. No points this time. And so Green Mountain, they take over on the 20 with 2 minutes left here in the first quarter. Couple plays later, they have a toss play that is blown up, but on top of that, there are offsetting penalties. Most importantly, that toss play was blown up, so that brings up a 3rd and 15, and they aren't able to go ahead and convert here, and so they would go ahead and punt it. But more special teams shenanigans happens. Not a muffed punt this time, but Evergreen gets a blocked punt. They go ahead and block this one, and so they set themselves up on the 17-yard line in the red zone with 12 seconds left here. They would run a play, bring up 2nd and 10, and so that's where Evergreen is to start the second quarter. Here in the second quarter here, they go ahead and get a first down. Jack Johnson on the run up the middle. So there you go there. Then they give it to Gabe Zimmer. He gets a couple of yards, making it 2nd and 7 on the goal line. They're on the 7-yard line here. Then a stretch play goes for a couple yards, bringing up 3rd and 2, a very manageable 3rd and 2. And to end this drive, Tommy Paholski finds his running back Gabe Zimmer for a quick throw. That goes for a touchdown, and Evergreen retakes the lead, leading 10-6 after the PAT. Now Green Mountain, they're not really a throwing team. They're going to try to run it, and that's what they do on this drive. But a tough situation, a holding penalty happens, and so they're put in a tough situation where it's 2nd and 17. They managed to make it 3rd and 16 after a short run, and so here they go. They have to pass it, and Jack Johnson for Evergreen gets a huge sack, making it 4th and 25. Now, I don't know why, but Green Mountain decides to go for it on 4th and 25, and they throw it, even though they're not really a throwing team. And as you could probably expect, they don't get it, and so that's a turnover on downs. And Evergreen takes over on the 25 with 5 minutes and 4 seconds left here in the half. Now Evergreen in a position to take a commanding lead, run the ball a couple times. They do run the ball up the middle for a first down. That sets up this next play where they go ahead and dial up a deep shot here. And man, was it a beautiful throw here. Tommy Paholski, 52-yard touchdown throw on the money accurate, great timing to his receiver, number 11. That is Mike Crane on a 50-plus yard bomb to go ahead and give Evergreen a 2-score lead here. Great throw here on this touchdown throw, as Evergreen now has a commanding 17-6 lead here in the second quarter. Now Green Mountain, they are trying to get something going here. Wallace, at one point, he scrambles around. He finds a receiver, number 19. That is Waylon Weeks, for a big-time 25-yard gain. That kind of keeps this drive alive and whatnot. But, you know, it does come down to a 4th and short situation here. They run it up the middle here, and they don't quite get it. They even measure this one, and Evergreen actually stops them and takes over on downs with about a minute left here. And so Evergreen takes over on the 29. I thought they might try to put together a drive, get in field goal range, or get another score, but Evergreen, with a minute left, a minute 10 seconds left basically, decides to run out the clock and go into halftime with a 17-6 lead. Just remember that's going to be important moving forward. And so here in the third quarter, Green Mountain, they take over on the 25. They get the ball to start here in the second half. Green Mountain has a good script here. They are running the ball well, and they are doing what they can, running a lot of read options, running dives, sweeps, tosses, and eventually that is good enough to get them here in the red zone here, putting them on the 14-yard line with a first down. For some reason, though, they decide to throw it instead of running the ball. And so a couple incompletions later, and after one short run, it is 4th and 7. And so they're here. They don't want to kick a field goal. They decide to go for it. And Sam Grimshaw for Evergreen would go ahead and kill this drive and get a big-time interception to go ahead and end Green Mountain's drive here. And so Evergreen, they have the ball. They have a 2-score lead here in the third quarter. There's about 4 minutes and 55 seconds here. They take over on the 35 because there was a personal foul here. And so they're running the ball. You know, they are very much decided on that. Well, then they decide to throw here, and it doesn't quite work out. They get an incompletion on 2nd and 10. And then it is 3rd and 10 after another short throw that really doesn't go anywhere. And so now it's 3rd and 10. They have to throw the ball to get the first down. But Tommy Paholski is sacked by Dominique Sanchez. And so that brings up a 4th and 20 here, a very tough situation. And so they have to punt it. But more special teams issues here for Evergreen would happen, as the snap would just go directly over the punter's head here. A bad snap here. And so Green Mountain would go ahead and take over on the 1-yard line here in the red zone. And, you know, it would take a lot to mess up this opportunity, and so Green Mountain doesn't mess up this opportunity, and they go ahead and score. That is number 22. I believe that's Anthony DeGrazia, yes, on the misdirection run here for the short touchdown, making it a manageable 17-14 game. That's after Anthony DeGrazia gets the 2-point conversion on the pitch play. And so just like that, Evergreen with a 2-score, now with only a 3-point lead. And so Evergreen takes over with a minute 37 seconds left here in the third quarter, and they're on the 40-yard line here. Now a couple miscommunications here leads to a delay of game, making it 1st and 15. Then they try to throw it. The pass is dropped by the receiver, so that makes it 2nd and 14. And then they try to throw it again. It is deflected at the line, so it's 3rd and 14. Tommy Paholski then finds number 3, Kyle Solowitz, for a nice gain, making it 4th and 5. But at this point, surprisingly enough, Evergreen decides to punt it instead of go for it. They're kind of near midfield. I get it, I guess, but they punt it. No crazy shenanigans here. They actually punt it, but Green Mountain would actually take over on the 50, getting a nice return here with about 41 seconds left here in the third quarter. And so they do get a nice first down by number 20. That is George Sape, I want to say. Excuse me if I'm saying that wrong. Please let us know so that we could say your name right. So there you go there. After that, though, it is a 3rd and 6 situation. Zach Wallace, the quarterback on the keeper, tries to get the first down, but he's stopped by Russ Woodward. Big play here. That brings up 4th and 6 going into the 4th quarter here. And 4th and 6 for Green Mountain. They decide to go for it, and they actually pass it. And it's incomplete. Like I said, it's not really their game, but it doesn't matter. Evergreen, they take over at midfield on the 46 here. And so here we go. They're trying to get another score here, potentially put it away here. And so they are going to do that by giving the ball off to Gabe Zimmerer. On 2nd down, he gets a nice first down on a 10-yard run up the middle. After that, on a stretch play, he gets them another first down, putting them on the 35. Then there's a fumble. The handoff is just dropped. And so that makes it 3rd and 12 here. And go ahead and make that 3rd and 22 basically after another holding penalty. And so here we go, 3rd and 22. Tommy Puholski rolls out and he throws a dot, but it's dropped. They do throw a pass interference though on Green Mountain. And so they make it 3rd and 9 here, repeating 3rd down. And so Puholski, he makes a couple people miss, but throws it, and it's not the greatest throw here. He was under pressure, so there you go. And so it's 4th and 9 here, and Evergreen decides to go for it here. And so they call a pass play. They throw it. It's a good ball. It gets the receiver, but it's just dropped. Green Mountain punishes the receiver, hits him pretty hard after that drop as well. And so Green Mountain takes over on the 27 with about 8 minutes and 44 seconds here in this game. And so with the ball, Green Mountain with plenty of time, they run their offense, they run it. Do have a couple throws here, but for the most part, it's Wallace that is running this ball here. It's Polonot, I want to say, number 3, who's running this ball here. They do get a couple throws in, not too many, but they find Donnie Carney on one throw here. But a big personal foul throw on Evergreen would actually give Green Mountain a good chunk here and a first down, putting them on the 14. A couple plays later, though, Evergreen is able to kind of hold them here. And so Green Mountain decides to kick it, and they do, tying this game at 17-17 with about 3 minutes and 37 seconds left here in this game. And so Evergreen with the ball, they have a chance to win this game, and they give it to Gabe Zimmerer a couple of teams on a couple of stretch plays here. The first one goes for 5. The next stretch play goes for 4, making it 3rd and 1. Doesn't matter. They hand it off to Gabe again, and he gets the first down on the dive, and they're now on the 47. After that, they run another stretch play, making it 2nd and 9, only went for 1 yard. Then they throw the ball here. Nice hitch route catch, makes it 3rd and 4. And then Zimmerer runs another stretch play here, and he gets stuffed. Tackle for loss, actually, and so that brings up 4th and 5. Not exactly the most, unpredictable plays here, so there you go. Green Mountain would go ahead and take a timeout, their final one, with about 51 seconds left here before 4th and 5 here. Evergreen going for it. They go ahead and drop Puholski back, and he throws it to number 18, his receiver, but he is not able to bring it in. And so Green Mountain goes ahead and forces a turnover on downs. And so they take over near midfield with about 46 seconds left here in this game. And so they get a couple nice yardage here. They do roll out and they throw the ball here, so they throw on one of these plays. But they call PI on Evergreen here. It wasn't complete, by the way, but they call PI on Evergreen. That goes for 15 and a first. They have about 42 seconds left. After that, Wallace, he scrambles, gets a yard. He's tackled, so, there you go. A couple plays in, it's 39. Green Mountain would go ahead and spike it here with about 20 seconds left in this game. Then they would roll out left and try to pass it, but it is low and it's incomplete. And so that brings up 4th and 9 here. So there you go there. My bad. I think the spike happened before it was 3rd and 9, because if they spiked it on 3rd and 9, it would be 4th. So there you go there. And so it's 4th and 9 here. They go ahead and go for it. They throw it to number 20. That is George Sape. And he goes ahead and comes down with it for a first down. And they spike it with about 2.8 seconds left here. Then after that, one of the players, he goes off sides here before they could call another play. It's 2nd and 5 here. And so Green Mountain, it looked like for a second with about 2.8 seconds left, they were going to go for it, try to score a touchdown. But at the last second, they actually run out their field goal unit. With about 15 seconds on the game clock, they run out their field goal unit. And so they kick it, and the kick is about a yard or two short. Very close, but comes up short. And so we got overtime here. It's tied 17-17. In case you haven't listened to what happens in overtime, it's basically college rules. They start on the 10. Each team gets a chance to score here, gets a chance to match them. And basically the team with the highest score after the overtime period wins. It's really not that crazy. But here we go. Evergreen, they're on offense first. They call a dive to Zimmer. He's stuffed, making it 2nd and 12 here. Actually went for loss. And then Tommy Poholski rolls out right, finds an open receiver, throws it. It's on the money, and it's dropped. Would have been a touchdown there. And so that brings up 3rd and 12 here. And so this time Tommy Poholski rolls out left. He has an open receiver. He throws a dart to him. The receiver's falling backwards. It's basically in his lap. It's really hard to not catch it, and he's falling back into the end zone, so he wouldn't be falling out of bounds. And the receiver's not able to hold on to it, so another drop, and this time this one's even worse, to be honest with you. So there you go. That brings up 4th and 12, and so Evergreen, with no choice, they decide to kick it, and it's blocked by Green Mountain. So at this point, Green Mountain really just needs to score, whether it's a touchdown or a field goal, to go ahead and win this one. And so, like I said, they take over on the 10. Here's what they run. Zach Wallace, he goes ahead and gets some nice yardage here to go ahead and put them on the 3-yard line. He goes for 7 behind some excellent blocking from his line on the keeper. Evergreen then goes ahead and calls a timeout. It's like 2nd and 3 right here, I believe. Then Green Mountain, they decide to run a counter to Russ Woodward's side. That's going nowhere. I don't know why they did that. And Russ Woodward goes ahead and tackles him for a loss, and that brings up 3rd and 5 here on the goal line. So there you go. Then they run it with Zach Wallace. He maneuvers around. He almost scores, but they do call him down on the 1. So there you go there. If he cut it outside, he would have had the touchdown, but it's 4th down. And so on 4th down, instead of kicking the field goal, which is interesting, they decide to run it with Wallace up the middle, and he is stuffed. So that goes nowhere. So nobody scores in overtime here. And so we got double overtime. And so here we go. Green Mountain starts with the ball here. They miss a wide open number 22 here on the throw. Wallace having to scramble around to find number Anthony DeGrazia. And it's not a great ball, and so it's incomplete. That brings up 2nd down. Then there's encroachment. That makes it 2nd and 5. And on 2nd and 5, it's number 20. That's George Sape. Sape, the junior here, runs it up the middle, gets the touchdown here on fantastic blocking. They also get the PAT, making it 24-17 here in double overtime. That puts the pressure on Evergreen. Evergreen, they have to score to match. They have to score and get the PAT to match, at least, and keep their hopes alive. And so here we go. Poholski on the run. He goes ahead and throws it towards the sideline. It's a great ball, but it is dropped. It's kind of a hard one to bring in here. And so that brings up 2nd and 10. And then on 2nd down, Tommy Poholski scrambles around, pump fakes it, then goes ahead and scrambles, gets a nice 7-yard gain, making it 3rd and 3. Then on 3rd down, Tommy Poholski, he rolls out, scrambles left, and he dives, jumps, extends for the touchdown, and he gets it. Evergreen gets the touchdown, and before they go for this extra point here, they go ahead and call a timeout, and they decide to go for 2 instead of hitting that PAT, kicking the PAT that would just tie it and put it into triple overtime. And so here we go, double overtime. Evergreen going for 2 here to win the game. Tommy Puholski, he scrambles out right. He has a bunch of receivers out right, by the way. And he is going to go ahead and scramble for the pylon. He dives, but he is met by a couple Green Mountain defenders, and he is brought down short, stopped, and Green Mountain goes ahead and wins in overtime, double overtime, 24-23, and an instant classic, getting a goal line stop, coming back from being down 17-6 going into halftime to go ahead and grit it out and win a very tough game here against Evergreen. Look, I gotta shout out this Green Mountain offensive line. They battled all night long. They gave clean pockets. They opened up running lanes. I mean, they ran for 183 rushing yards and 3 total touchdowns between all the guys that got carries here. Zach Wallace, he made a couple of throws here. You know, like I said, Green Mountain's not really a throwing team, but they made the throws they needed to get back into this game. And they did a good job here. You know, they did a very good job here to win this game. Evergreen, on the other hand, I mean, they were winning 17-6. Like I said at halftime, I said, hey, remember this, they had 1:06 left before the second quarter ended, and they elected to not put together a drive there. And so that obviously came back to kill them there at the end, because, you know, if they got a field goal or a touchdown, then it wouldn't have had to go into overtime most likely. And so there you go. Also, they had a couple of drops here, and it was just a tough go for Evergreen. I mean, Tommy Puholski played his heart out. He did a good job. Russ Woodward, he did a good job. Gabe Zimmer, he battled it out. 27 carries here, but he did a good job. But, you know, as a team, you got to win. You know, a lot of special teams mistakes for Evergreen as well. A couple drop punts, and, you know, they had a block there as well and whatnot. And so just not the cleanest game. I mean, not the cleanest game for either team. Green Mountain also muffed up punt. But, you know, it's good that they played this game in the regular season. Green Mountain, by the way, still undefeated at 6-0, basically a lock in the playoffs. And they will probably play Littleton to go ahead and win league. But they're basically guaranteed a top 6 spot or top 8 spot here in the playoffs. Evergreen, they're 4-2. They should still make the playoffs. We'll see where they are ranked and whatnot. I mean, they have Littleton, Skyview, Wheat Ridge, and Conifer to end the season. They should beat all of them. But like I said, we'll see where they're ranked here. And so it was good. Both teams played this matchup here. I mean, it's a league game, but it's good they both played it here, you know, against a tough opponent. Going into the playoffs, they're going to have to play, you know, better games. They're going to have to be more put together on special teams. That you can't drop footballs in big time situations here. And that goes for either team. And so, you know, we'll see what happens in the playoffs. This might be a matchup that we'll see sometime in the playoffs. So just keep an eye out for that. But there you go. Green Mountain, like I said, stays undefeated, 6-0, winning in double overtime, 24-23 over Evergreen, as Evergreen drops to 4-2. All right, let's keep it going, though. We have some great matchups from Friday, October 7th to talk about. Let's go ahead and start in 5A, work our way down here to 1A. But here in 5A, we got Ralston Valley versus Columbine, 2 top 5 teams here in a showdown. Columbine being basically the consensus number 2 team in the state here in 5A. Ralston Valley having some quality wins here, but also losing some close ones as well. And here's how it went down here. A long throw by Logan Madden to Jackson Hansen, and then Ralston Valley safety would put them up 9-6 over Columbine going into the fourth quarter. Columbine then gets a nice 6-minute drive here in the fourth, ending with a Markane Taylor touchdown to put them up 13-19 with roughly 4 minutes left here in the fourth. And then Ralston Valley, they're just able to put together a very nice drive here to end the game. A Diano Bonalo rushing touchdown. Excuse me if I'm saying that name wrong. I don't know if that is correct or not, but we're just going to go with that. But a nice rushing touchdown from him would go ahead and cap off a very good Ralston Valley drive. And that would basically be the game as they would score with under a minute left there. And so Ralston Valley upsets Columbine 16-13. Now, at this point, both teams are basically guaranteed a top 10, top 12 seed here in the playoffs. They've played some very difficult opponents here. Columbine, this is their first loss here to a good Ralston Valley team who likes to play the upset, as I think a lot of listeners know here. And so that was a very good game here. Potentially a game we might see in the playoffs, so just keep an eye out. But like I said, Ralston Valley gets the upset 16-13. That should shake up our power rankings just a little bit as well. Now, still in 5A, we got Cherokee Trail versus Eagle Crest. Eagle Crest wins 30-0, moves to 6-1, and basically punches their ticket into the playoffs. Now they get Cherry Creek this next week, Smoky Hill, and Arapahoe to end the season. Those games will probably decide where they rank in the playoffs, but Eagle Crest for sure is in the dance. Speaking in the dance, it doesn't get more in the dance than Cherry Creek here, and they play Smoky Hill here, and Cherry Creek wins in a dominating fashion, 43-0. Moving to 6-1 on the season. Their only one loss here was against an out-of-state team and a powerhouse from Ohio, so there you go. But some interesting things to keep in mind here. First off, Ishmael Sisi dominating in one half of play. 5 receptions, 116 receiving yards, 3 receiving touchdowns. Jordan Heron went for 100 rushing yards. No Carlson Bubba Tan. But the bigger story here is Brady Vodka, the freshman quarterback, got the majority of the snaps here, and he looked excellent. He won 12 of 15 for 183 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns, also had 4 carries for 39 rushing yards and rushing touchdowns. No turnovers. It looks like the Brady Vodka era is here, but we will see what happens next game against a fast Eagle Crest defense. Now, I did say it looks like the Vodka era is here, but it's because he just had the best performance out of any Cherry Creek quarterback this season. You know, no other quarterback, whether it was Brian Rudden, Aurelio Marchiol, Ben Starr, whoever has had a better game than Brady Vodka here. And it's not like Smoky Hill isn't a solid team either. And so, like I said, we'll see what happens moving forward. But if he does continue to take snaps and is the starter, then, you know, you can mark this as the beginning of the Brady Vodka era, the phenom freshman quarterback getting the start here for Cherry Creek and making the most of it. So there you go there. Cherry Creek in a good spot. Number 1 team in the state. Smoky Hill. I don't know if they'll make the playoffs. We'll see. They play in a tough league that is the Centennial League. Moving on, though, we have Arvada West versus Lakewood. Arvada West wins 47-16, snapping a 3-game win streak and momentarily keeping their playoff hopes alive. Now, they will have to play Columbine, Pomona, and Ralston Valley to end the season. Not easy games at all. And so at this point, they have to win 2 of these last 3 games to even have a chance at making the playoffs. That would put them at 5-5 if they win 2 of these last 3 games. If they don't, then, you know, they're on the outside. They have a losing record. They'll be on the bubble. So we'll see what happens for Arvada West here. Then we got Rock Canyon versus Mountain Vista, another league game here. Both of these teams playing well here. Rock Canyon at this point undefeated, I believe. Mountain Vista, they do have a couple losses, but not bad. They are coming off that loss last week to Thunder Ridge, where they blew a 21-point lead here. And so here's how it went down. Austin Majeski, he goes ahead and completes the Hail Mary pass to senior wide receiver Michael Milausnik, I want to say, who catches the game-winning touchdown as Mountain Vista shocks Rock Canyon 40-36 here. Austin Majewski, we've seen him play since his freshman year. We've known what he's been about. In this game, he went ballistic, 27-42, 460 passing yards, 6 passing touchdowns. Also did a good job spreading the ball here. Ja'Kai Mack and Sean Conway both had over 100 receiving yards and a receiving touchdown at least each. Kyler Crook and Jack Blaze also caught a touchdown as well as he spread the ball here and played an excellent game. For Rock Canyon, they didn't play bad either. It did come down to a Hail Mary. They couldn't defend it. And it just happened. Games like these happen. But they did a solid job. Aiden Duda at running back, 139 rushing yards, a touchdown. Luka Winogle, 9 rushes, 91 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. Kicker also for, by the way, the kicker for Rock Canyon, he went 3 of 4 and it appears, looks like, to miss 2 PATs in a 4-point game. That matters. And so that's tough for them. But like I said, Mountain Vista goes ahead and beats Rock Canyon 40-36 here. Their quarterback, Austin Majewski, definitely in Playmaker of the Week talks here, at least for 5A. So there you go there. Speaking of Playmaker of the Week, we got Fountain Fort Carson versus the Legend. Legend having a Playmaker of the Week candidate of their own as they beat Fountain Fort Carson 43-24 here. Now, just wanted to say this, a pick 6 in the second quarter would give them a 2-score lead here for Legend, and they would not look back after that. But the Playmaker of the Week candidate that Legend has is sophomore running back Jaden Lawrence. Only 7 carries, but went for 137 rushing yards, 3 rushing touchdowns, also had 4 receptions, 60 receiving yards, and a receiving touchdown as the Legend goes ahead and continues to shock some people, including myself, by beating Fountain Fort Carson 43-24. At this point, it looks like Legend should make the playoffs. They're 5-2. We'll see if their next 3 games don't get any easier. In fact, they get tougher. They play Pine Creek away, then they play Regis Jesuit away, then they play Douglas County at home. We'll see there. If they drop all 3 games, they'll be 5-5, but they should have a tough enough schedule to make the playoffs here. We'll see. Moving on though, Prairie View versus Legacy. Legacy continues their run, winning 40-7. Sophomore running back Tyler Anderson ran for only 85 rushing yards, but had 4 rushing touchdowns in this winning effort. Legacy moves to 5-2, basically guaranteeing themselves a spot in the playoffs. They get Mullen, Horizon, and Brighton to end the season here. The only way they don't make the playoffs is if they lose all of these games. And even then, I don't know, but they should make the playoffs. They're guaranteed at least a spot by now. Legacy, that is. Moving on and moving up north, though, we got Rocky Mountain versus Fort Collins, and Rocky Mountain wins 21-0. Rocky moves to 4-3. They have Fossil Ridge, Boulder, and Fairview to end the season. They will most likely need to win at least 2 of those last 3 games to have a good chance at making the playoffs. So we'll see there. And then Fort Collins season, on the other hand, is most likely over past the regular season. So there you go there. Now we got Highlands Ranch versus Valor Christian. Valor continuing to run, finding a rhythm now. They're a little bit dangerous. They beat Highlands Ranch, a solid squad, 45-17. Quarterback Asher Weiner looking like the best quarterback in his class. Went 10 of 12 for 140 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns. Also had 11 carries for 113 rushing yards and 2 rushing touchdowns, 4 touchdowns for the young 3-star quarterback here for Valor. Then you have Gabe Sawchuk, 12 carries, 89 rushing yards, a rushing touchdown. Also, by the way, shout out to our guy, Alex Jordan, getting his first receiving touchdown at tight end of the season. He's a dangerous guy to look out for as well, as Valor Christian continues to roll here, looking more and more stronger. That's not a word, I don't think. They're looking stronger as the season goes on. They're now 5-2. Highlands Ranch now 2-5. It looks like they might not be able to make the playoffs here. But for Valor here, they pull a tough last couple of teams here in league. They're gonna have to probably win out to win league, most likely, or at least win the majority here. They get Rock Canyon on Saturday. That'll be away, I believe, at Echo Park, so that'll be a good one. Rock Canyon, they are coming off a loss, but they only have one loss on the season, and that was that Mountain Vista game where they got the Hail Mary, so there you go. Then after that, Valor Christian plays Thunder Ridge away up at Shea Stadium, Halftime Help Stadium now is what it's called, I guess. I will be at that game, so there you go there. That will be potentially for league, as Thunder Ridge is undefeated right now. And then to end the season, Valor plays Mountain Vista. That will also be at Halftime Help Stadium. We'll see what happens there. Mountain Vista looking like a strong team here. So we'll see. A tough last couple games to end the season, regular season, for Valor. Anyways, moving on to 4A here, we have a top matchup between number 1 Palmer Ridge and top 10 team here in Pueblo West. Palmer Ridge traveling down to Pueblo. Never an easy thing here. And Palmer Ridge actually goes ahead and wins 21-0 after an early Orlando Aranda touchdown to put them up 7-0. Josh Gerlach, the second pick six, at the 9-minute mark in the fourth quarter would basically allow Palmer Ridge to really pull away here. By the way, that was his second interception of the day. Palmer Ridge would then get another rushing touchdown at the end of the game as they shut down this Pueblo West offense, playing very, very well against them. By the way, no Gator Robinson in this game either, but Palmer Ridge continues to dominate and continues to be number 1. Both of these teams should make the playoffs. At this point, Palmer Ridge is guaranteed a top 12 spot here in the playoffs. Their next biggest threat is against Vista Ridge at the end of the season. I will potentially make it out to this game. We will see here. But Pueblo West, I don't know. They are for sure making the playoffs, but we'll see about top 12. They'll need to continue to win games here. So there you go. Moving on, though, we got a battle for Longmont. Longmont versus Silver Creek here. Longmont goes ahead and wins 40-25 off of a great performance from Cole Gaddis, Playmaker of the Week candidate, who on 30 carries went for 211 rushing yards, 5 rushing touchdowns, also had 4 tackles and an interception in this big-time game. Moving on, though, we have Cheyenne Mountain versus Rampart. Rampart blowing out Cheyenne Mountain 55-14. Did not see that one coming. Cheyenne Mountain ran for 294 rushing yards and 5 touchdowns here. Rampart ran for 294 yards and 5 touchdowns, having multiple people score, but most importantly, it was Hayden Bonneau and Braden Sears who each had 2 touchdowns, contributing to this absolute thrashing of Cheyenne Mountain here. Cheyenne Mountain now 3-4. Playoff hopes looking a little iffy. They get Vista Ridge and Palmer Ridge, in these next 2 games. So those will all be tough games. And then Coronado to end the season here. And so it's not looking great. Rampart, though, they're at 3-4. We'll see if they could potentially sneak into the playoffs here as a lower seed. So there you go. Now, moving on, though, we have Widefield versus Hinckley. Widefield takes care of them 48-0 here. Widefield moving to 6-1, having a very good season. They will have a spot in the playoffs here, or at least they should, and they are a front runner for this league to win their league. So we'll see what happens there. Monarch versus Erie. Erie, they need to win pretty much every single game from here on out to have a chance of making the playoffs. And so they go ahead and win this one, winning 63-14, improving to 3-4. Now, Erie, they got Silver Creek, Longmont, and Greeley West. They are in a must-win mode to secure a spot in the playoffs here. I really feel like they can't lose to any of these teams if they want to make the playoffs. If they lose one, then that means at best it could go 500, and a lot of those wins will not be against the strongest opponents. And so we'll see here what happens for Erie. Alright, then we got Vista Ridge versus Air Academy. Vista Ridge wins in a dominating fashion, 64-20. They advanced to 5-2 on the season. Braden Dorman continuing his historic run. He is on fire, the best quarterback in the state for a reason. He won 21 of 27, only missed 6 passes, but threw 6 passing touchdowns and threw for 527 passing yards insane. He had the same amount of passing touchdowns as incompletions in this game. Keyshawn Dooley having an excellent season. Had an excellent game in this one. 12 receptions, 273 receiving yards, and 2 receiving touchdowns here. BB Hills, I believe, 4 receptions, 156 receiving yards, 2 receiving touchdowns here. Gavin Jenkins, 4 receptions, 83 receiving yards, 2 receiving touchdowns as this senior group continues to run it here. Dorman, in 7 games, has now surpassed pretty much every season stat he has ever recorded in the last 3 seasons now, except for passing yards at this point. He is now roughly 300 yards away from getting a personal best in a season, personal best in passing yards in a season, and that includes playoffs. And so he has 3 more games left in the regular season, plus at least 1 playoff game to continue this historical season as he continues to rewrite the record books in Vista Ridge football history. A lot of the records he is beating are his own, so, or at least I would assume so. So there you go there. As they continue to be dangerous, they have a big-time matchup against Palmer Ridge at the end of the season there, which we'll see what happens. But they are basically guaranteed a spot here in the playoffs. Now, beating Palmer Ridge at the end would guarantee them a top 12 seed. So there you go. Moving on, though, we have Stanley Lake versus Golden. Golden wins 21-0. They get a key win here, extending their win streak to 2 and getting to 4-3 on the season. Now, Golden, they have Dakota Ridge next, Adams City, and Grand Junction to end the season. They really should win these last 2 games, and if they do, they should be a lock to make the playoffs with 6 wins. They really just need to win 2 of their last 3 games to make it in. Beating Dakota Ridge will be key as they're also vying for a playoff spot, and so you potentially take their spot there if you beat them, but we will see. Stanley Lake, though, they only dropped to 5-2. A narrow 1-point loss to Skyline at the beginning of the season is their only other loss here. Now, Stanley Lake, they get Heritage, Bear Creek, and Dakota Ridge, who are all vying for a playoff spot here in similar positions. So if they want a good chance at making the playoffs, they need to win at least 1 of their last 3 games here. That would go ahead and put them at 6 wins. They would be 6-4, and at this point, it's really either you or them in a lot of these matchups. So if they want to make the playoffs, they gotta win one of these games. I think if they're at 500, they could potentially still make the playoffs at 5-5, but they will be on the bubble and they will be in a tougher spot here. So we will see about that here, but winning another game here out of these last 3 would definitely guarantee them a spot in the playoffs. At least I would think so. Moving on, though, we have Denver South versus Gateway. Gateway forfeited, so Denver South basically has a bye week. Then we got Montrose versus Falcon. Montrose wins 49-6. They move to 5-2, now on a 5-game winning streak after losing to Palmer Ridge and Fruita Monument to start the season. Montrose now gets Coronado, Mesa Ridge, and Pueblo West to end the season. Even if they lose 3 straight games, which they really shouldn't, they should be a lock for the playoffs at this point. It's just a matter of seeding right here. Speaking of seeding, we got Mesa Ridge versus Coronado in the same league. Mesa wins 49-3, moving to 5-2. Mesa Ridge, they get Rampart, Montrose, and Falcon to end the season. Winning 1 more game for Mesa would basically lock themselves a spot in the playoffs. So we will see. It has to be 1 win against Rampart, Montrose, or Falcon. Moving on here, we got Ponderosa versus Vista Peak. They go ahead and blow them out 35-6, move to 5-2. Zach Stryker, 174 passing yards, 2 touchdowns to 1 interception. He also had 104 rushing yards as they basically locked themselves into the playoffs with the top 12 seed here. Then we got Skyline versus Windsor. Windsor wins 42-27, improving to 4-3 on the season, dropping Skyline to 4-3 as well. Jaden Thomas, he had 133 rushing yards and a touchdown. Mitchell Madrill had 64 rushing yards and 3 rushing touchdowns. Now, this is where things get interesting to end the season. Windsor has Greeley West, Loveland, and Grand Junction Central. Skyline basically has the same opponents here. They get Loveland, Grand Junction Central, and Greeley Central, so not Greeley West. For both of these teams, winning 2 of the last 3 games will probably guarantee them a spot in the playoffs. We'll see what happens here. They are both kind of on the bubble, it feels like. Going 500 on the regular season is more risky for Windsor, though, than Skyline, since Skyline has more quality wins/losses. So just keep that in mind here as we continue to see who makes the playoffs and lock themselves in here. Moving down to 3A, though, we got Niwot versus Frederick. Frederick wins, dominating here, 49-0. They move to 4-2, keeping their playoff hopes alive and top seed hopes alive as they drop Niwot to 3-3. Now Frederick, they got Riverdale Ridge, Denver North, Meade, and George Washington to end the season. Winning at least 2 of these 4 should guarantee them a spot in the playoffs. Anything less would definitely be concerning, so we'll see about that. Littleton versus Skyview, they go ahead and take care of business, 48-26. Bryson Malanga continues a historical season for Littleton here as he goes on 28 carries, he goes for 232 rushing yards and 5 rushing touchdowns, continuing to etch his name in the record books for Littleton football here. Moving on, though, we got Denver North versus Riverdale Ridge, and Riverdale Ridge wins 41-7. They move to 3-3, while Denver North is now 4-2. This league is a close one, but realistically, they may only take the top 3 teams from this league, just looking at the record here for the playoffs. So we will see. This league, by the way, I believe includes me, George Washington, all those guys. So just keep that in mind. We'll see how the end shakes out here. Moving on, though, we got Northridge versus Mountain View, and Northridge escapes an upset. They don't get upset, and they win 9-7 here. Isaac Ness, 120 rushing yards, 1 touchdown. Cooper Rose threw 3 interceptions in this thing, but this Northridge defense got 2 interceptions and a fumble recovery to go ahead and make up for it. A field goal with a minute left in the 4th quarter would save them to make it 9 points here. And so Northridge escapes a scare here, and it doesn't get easier. They play Roosevelt on Thursday, which myself and Kodey Stauffer will be at here. And that's a game where they cannot afford 1 turnover, nonetheless 3. So we'll see what goes down for them. Moving on, though, Pueblo East versus Sand Creek. This is the first game since the Cannon game for Pueblo East, I believe. They go ahead and win 58-14. They move to 5-1 at this point and are basically a lock for the playoffs. They do have Canyon City, Mitchell, Discovery Canyon, and Pueblo County to end the season. Even if they lost all of them, which I have a hard time believing they would, then we'll see what happens, but they should be a lock for the playoffs. Moving on, though, we have another 3A showdown. We have Resurrection Christian versus Roosevelt, and Roosevelt wins a close one, 35-20 here. Here's basically how it went down. 2 Xavier Ramirez rushing touchdowns will basically put this one away, as Resurrection Christian was only 1 point behind them going into the 4th quarter, since they were basically going toe-to-toe with them. But like I said, 2 Xavier Ramirez touchdowns here in the 4th quarter would win Roosevelt this game. In the game here, Ramirez, he had 108 rushing yards and those 2 rushing touchdowns. Ryan Doucet, Doucet, I want to say he had 17 carries, 135 rushing yards, and a rushing touchdown. Bronco Hartson, he played relatively well, 11 of 16 for 223 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, only 1 pick. But the backfield turned up for Roosevelt here, as now they pull a top 3 team in Northridge this next week. Like I said, we will be at this game. Resurrection Christian, on the other hand, this was their first loss on the season. They're now 5-1, but they hung with this Roosevelt team more than any other team has so far this season. So there you go there. Another rematch could mean anything could potentially happen. That's a potential playoff matchup. Now, Rez, they get Severance, Mountain View, Northridge, and Thompson Valley to end the season. But regardless of how those games should go, they are basically a lock in the playoffs. Shouldn't lose all of them, though. Moving on, though, we got Durango versus Summit. Battle of two top 10 teams here in 3. And Durango, no mercy here. They go ahead and beat them up 56-3 here. Tyler Harms, perfect game here. He went 9 for 9 for 193 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns. He is a Playmaker of the Week candidate. But you also have Jake Baruch, who contributed 134 rushing yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. Zachary Haber, 97 rushing yards and rushing touchdowns. AJ Folk, their tight end, he had 2 receptions for 114 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns. Go figure there. Just killing it. This Durango defense came to play. 6 sacks, 1 interception, 1 fumble recovery as Durango shuts down Summit to the highest degree here. They did allow a field goal, but that's just a field goal. But like I said, Durango drops the hammer on Summit, evening the records at 5-1 for both teams. Both teams should make the playoffs here, but Durango getting this win basically guarantees them a top seed here in the playoffs. So a top 8 seed here in the playoffs. Summit, though, I mean, they could potentially get a top 8 seed in the playoffs, but we will see what happens. Moving on, though, we have Thompson Valley versus Severance. Thompson Valley actually wins this one, 29-13. Garrett Hendrickson had 2 interceptions, for Thompson Valley in this game. Severance, unfortunately, they are now 2-4 with matchups against Resurrection Christian, Roosevelt Mountain View, and Northridge to end the season. 3 of those teams are in the top 10. Most likely their season is over after dropping a winnable game to Thompson Valley. To make the playoffs, they're going to have to win 3 of these last 4 games. And that's a pretty tall order considering how good some of these other teams are. Thompson Valley, on the other hand, they are 4-2 and they face the same set of opponents. They have to beat Mountain View if they want a chance at the playoffs. That's just how it is. But an upset win wouldn't hurt Thompson Valley's case either, as they may make the playoffs, but they are kind of on the outside here. So we will see what happens moving forward, as those last games will be important. Moving on, though, George Washington versus Meade. Big league game here for both teams. George Washington wins this one, though, 24-17. A George Washington touchdown pass to go up 17-7 with 5 minutes left in the third will basically make Meade play catch up here. Meade would get a rushing touchdown to cap off a drive, making it 17-14 with 9 minutes left here in the fourth quarter. But a field goal go ahead and would actually tie it 17-17 with about 6 minutes left in this game. Then George Washington will get a long drive and go ahead and score a passing touchdown here with under a minute left to win it here. George Washington moves to 5-1 in a prime spot to make the playoffs and have a top seed in the playoffs. So Meade loses another close game here and dropped to 1-5. They are most likely eliminated from the playoffs here, from playoff contention here. Even if Meade wins out, they would have a losing record, and if they make it in as the last seed, it would be off of strength of schedule, and so I kind of feel like that's a lot to ask, so we'll see there. Moving on, though, Pueblo South versus Sierra. South gets their first win of the season, winning 44-0. So that happened. Harrison versus Lewis Palmer. Harrison wins 19-13, winning a key straight fourth game, going 4-2 now. They get Centennial, Pueblo Centennial, Pueblo South, Pueblo Central, and Sierra to end the season. Winning 3 of those last 4 games should be enough to get Harrison in the playoffs, or at least have them considered to make the playoffs. Anything less could be iffy considering their strength of schedule. And so we'll keep an eye on that, though. But Harrison looking good and making a run here for the playoffs. Moving on, though, we have Pueblo County versus Canyon City. County wins this one in a close one, 22-21. Then we got Lutheran versus Holy Family, another matchup here. Lutheran takes care of business, 35-13. Ryan Kenny, Playmaker of the Week candidate, 26 carries, 174 rushing yards, 3 rushing touchdowns in this one. So there you go. Now moving down a level to 2A, we got La Junta versus Woodland Park. Woodland Park gets a huge 14-6 overtime win over La Junta, improving to 5-1. La Junta, with their quarterback done for the season, that is confirmed. They are now 3-3, and they are facing an upward climb with Lamar, Manitou Springs, and Florence. Like I said, La Junta, they don't have Luke Garner. He is done, and they do have to play Lamar, Manitou Springs, and Florence. Those aren't easy games. By the way, an Evan Barnsberger interception in overtime after Woodland Park got the touchdown and the 2-point conversion would win them that game. So there you go. Woodland Park looking strong here. La Junta kind of in trouble. So we will see what happens. Moving on though, we got Valley versus Platte Valley. Platte Valley actually wins 26-12, improving to 3-3 on the season. Now Platte Valley, they get Bennett, Wellington, and Prospect Ridge Academy to end the season. Winning the last 3 games of the season would pretty much guarantee them a spot in the playoffs, or at least guarantee them a good chance at making the playoffs. So there you go there. Then we got Berthoud versus Faith Christian. Berthoud wins a close one, 21-14. Berthoud moves to 5-1. Their only loss being to 3A Thompson Valley. And then they got Eden, the Academy, and Steamboat Springs left to end the season. All difficult opponents. It's a league play. This is one of the toughest leagues in Colorado. And so a win in one of these games will most likely give them a spot in the playoffs, but they can't lose all of these games. So we'll see what happens. Then we got Devlin versus Bennett. Devlin wins a shootout. I don't know if this is correct here, but it has to be. Devlin wins 66-64. Austin Bushlack, their quarterback, had 57 pass attempts, threw for 495 yards, 7 touchdowns to 2 interceptions here. Absolutely insane. Gabe Jackson had 214 receiving yards. Ethan Bushlack, he had 99 receiving yards. Brad Fuller had 107 receiving yards. Bennett, on the other hand, doing the complete opposite. They don't really throw the ball, they run it. But, Connor Rayburn had 131 rushing yards, 4 rushing touchdowns. James Newton, 147 rushing yards, 3 rushing touchdowns. Isaac Copeland, 117 rushing yards, 1 touchdown. They had 3 guys run over 100 yards. And then even these other guys, Jamoni Law, 61 rushing yards. Carson Hawkins, 63 rushing yards. What a shootout. What a game between these two teams. An important game for these two teams, as now they're both 4-2. Excuse me here. Devlin, they play Wellington, Prospect Ridge Academy, and Valley to end the season here. Bennett, they play Platte Valley, Wellington to end the season here. A lot of important games. This is a close league here. Winning out would guarantee them a spot in the playoffs, most likely here. But the race for the league title here will be very key to look out for, as Platte Valley's only 1 game behind both Devlin and Bennett here. Devlin obviously having the tiebreaker here in this one. So we'll see what happens. Things are getting interesting in that league. Moving on though, we have Delta versus Salida. Delta keeps their undefeated season alive and more with a 41-0 win. They are now 7-0. Now they got Bayfield, Montezuma, Cortez left here, but Delta's a lock in the playoffs already, and potentially already a lock as a top 8, maybe even top 5 seeded team. Salida though, they are 3-4. They need to win out to have the best chance of making the playoffs, which even then may not be enough. Do want to say though, Delta's Landon Clay, 8 of 14 for 92 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns. Also, 54 rushing yards for 3 rushing touchdowns. That is Playmaker of the Week candidate worthy, so he is there. Moving on, we got Basalt versus Rifle, a rivalry game here. Basalt goes ahead and wins this one 22-7. They stay undefeated at 6-0. They got Moffat County, Coleridge, and Aspen to end the season, but beating Moffat will most likely win their league, so keep an eye on that. At this point, they're guaranteed a spot in the playoffs, though. So there you go. Rifle, on the other hand, they are 2-4, and they play Aspen, Grand Valley, and Coleridge to end the season. Now, they need to win big if they want a good chance on making the playoffs. It's not enough to just win. They're going to need to win big. And so with their strength of schedule here, if they win big, they could potentially sneak into playoffs. Just looking at their season, I mean, they had a 3-point loss to Moffett, 21-point loss to Delta, 7-point loss only to Glenwood Springs. They also beat Montezuma Cortez, which is the only loss that Montezuma Cortez has on the season. And so Rifle could still make the playoffs, but they need to win big in these last couple games. Speaking of winning big here, Eden wins big 52-6, moves to 5-1. They got Berthoud, Faith Christian, and the Academy to end the season, but that league championship really should be against the Academy. Right now, they're basically guaranteed a top 8 seed in the playoffs. Winning that Academy game and all of these other ones should be big. We will hopefully be able to make it to that game. So there you go. Walker Martin, 8 of 16, 192 passing yards, 4 touchdowns to 1 interception. But the Playmaker of the Week candidate from Eden is Morgan Trebet, 135 rushing yards, 1 rushing touchdown. He also had 1 62-yard receiving touchdown. There you go. Then on defense, 9 tackles and a sack here. Eden, their defense came to play here. 6 interceptions from Trent Solberg, Joey Blaskowski, Zach Grable, and then 3 interceptions. 3 of those 6 came from Austin Martinez here, as they just dominated Fort Lupton here. Now, Fort Lupton, they are 3-3. They're not out of the playoff discussion just yet. They pulled the Academy, Steamboat Springs, and Faith Christian to end the season. Going 2-1 in those games will give them a shot in the playoffs. Even then, it would still be a close call here. I think beating Steamboat Springs and the Academy would go a long way in guaranteeing that spot. So we will see what happens for Fort Lupton. They are definitely in a playoff race here with a couple other teams. So there you go. Moving on, we have Alamosa versus Lamar. Alamosa wins 49-7, moving to 4-2 on the season. They're in a great position to make the playoffs. Lamar now 1-5. They are basically eliminated from playoff contention here. Alamosa's RJ Mays, 118 rushing yards, rushing touchdown. Casey Jones, 163 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns. 82 rushing yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. That is good enough for Playmaker of the Week candidacy. So there you go. Moving on though, Florence versus Manitou Springs. Florence wins big 60-0, moving to 5-1. They really should be a lock for the playoffs now, despite how the end of their season goes against Woodland Park, Alamosa, La Junta. So there you go. Those are more so games that their opponents need to win to make the playoffs than Florence needs to win. So yeah, that's that. Speaking of needing to win, Manitou Springs, they're now 3-3, and they need to win following 2 blowout losses. They're in a dangerous spot now. They play Alamosa, La Junta, and Lamar next. Winning out would for sure get them in the playoffs, I think. Anything less would kind of put them on the bubble. I mean, if they win the majority of their last 3 games, then I think they have a good shot at making it. But like I said, they're on the bubble here. So we'll see what Manitou Springs does now. They're at 3-3, so this is a crossroads here. You either make it or you don't. It's do or die, so we'll see what happens. But anyways, Playmaker of the Week candidate for Florence, Levi Paxton. He only threw for 48 yards, but he had a touchdown, 1 interception. Did run, though, for 207 rushing yards and 3 rushing touchdowns. That's good enough to be a Playmaker of the Week candidate. Now the Academy, they win big against Steamboat Springs. Both teams looking to make the playoffs here. The Academy wins 68-27, moving to 5-1. They got Fort Lupton, Berthoud, and Eden to end the season. Most likely that Eden game should be their league championship, assuming they take care of business against Fort Lupton and Berthoud. So there you go there. The Academy basically a lock for the playoffs already. It's just a matter of seeding. Steamboat Springs, though, they're 3-3. They're not quite out of the playoffs. They got Faith Christian, Fort Lupton, and Berthoud to end the season. Beating Fort Lupton and Berthoud specifically would most likely give them a playoff spot over those same teams who are all on the bubble with them. And so you got to beat those teams if you want to make the playoffs. That's what I think it's going to come down to. Same with those teams beating Steamboat Springs. They got to beat them if they want to make the playoffs. So we'll see. Do want to shout out these performances by the Academy, though. Jay Donahue, he ran for 172 rushing yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. But Isaiah Elliott, he's our Playmaker of the Week candidate. He won 19 of 22 for 289 passing yards, 4 passing touchdowns, 5 rushing yards, and 2 rushing touchdowns as they get a big dub here. Speaking of big dubs, Moffat County gets one against Coleridge 48-6. They moved to 5-1 with Basalt, Aspen, and Grand Valley to end the season. That Basalt game will most likely be for league, so there you go there. By the way, Evan Atkin in this game, 216 rushing yards, 3 rushing touchdowns on only 12 carries. Very impressive. But moving on, Wellington versus Prospect Ridge Academy. Wellington wins 44-8, moving to 4-2 on the season. Now they got matchups against Devlin, Platte Valley, and Bennett to end the season. I mean, like I said, a lot of teams on the bubble here. They're gonna have to beat at least the majority of these matchups, 2 of the 3, to make the playoffs, and they are a first-year program, so we will see what happens. Moving on, though, Montezuma-Cortez versus Bayfield. Montezuma-Cortez avoids the upset with a late rushing touchdown to win 24-16. They go to 6-1 on the season, while Bayfield remains winless on the season here. Montezuma-Cortez gets Pagosa Springs and Delta to end the season, with Delta potentially being the league championship there. At this point, they should have a spot in the playoffs, but it's all about getting a better seed here, and so beating Delta would go a long way there. Now, moving down to 1A here, you have some good matchups. Colorado Springs Christian versus Rye. Rye defeats Colorado Springs Christian in a close one, 31-29, as Rye is now 5-1, while Colorado Springs Christian drops to a dangerous 3-3 here. Rye plays Peyton, Bating Lewis Academy, and Rocky Ford to end the season, with that Bating Lewis Academy game potentially being for league. I should be able to make that one. And then the game, So yeah, that Bating Lewis Academy one should be for league and should help secure a spot in the playoffs. So there you go. Colorado Springs Christian, for a chance at the playoffs, they have to beat Banning Lewis Academy this next week to make the playoffs here, to have a chance at making the playoffs. So they basically have to win out. So there you go there. We'll see what happens as drama is brewing in that league. Moving on, though, Wiggins versus Holyoke. Wiggins defeats Holyoke 42-8. Moving to 4-2, dropping Holyoke to 2-4. Julio Flores, Playmaker of the Week candidate here, ran for 346 rushing yards and 5 rushing touchdowns, as he was the Wiggins offense here. Moving on, we got Yuma versus Burlington. Yuma wins 32-21 behind Nash Richardson's 102 rushing yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. They stay undefeated at 6-0, and they're basically guaranteed a playoff spot at this point. Speaking of playoff teams, Gunnison, they beat Cedar Ridge 36-0. Cedar Ridge did not have Luke Maxey, so keep that in mind. But regardless, Gunnison moves to 5-2. They play Meeker North Fork to end the season, but regardless, they really should have a spot in the playoffs. Speaking of Meeker here, they play Buena Vista at home here, and Buena Vista gets a much needed quality win, 41-29, putting both teams at 4-2 right now. Hayden Camp, Playmaker of the Week candidate, 7 of 13 for 169 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns, 30 rushing yards. Caleb Camp, he had 4 receptions, 96 receiving yards, 2 receiving touchdowns. Jacob Phelps, he had a passing touchdown of 54 yards, which was crazy, and then had 49 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown. Also had a pick on defense. Here's how it went down here. Hayden Camp, he had 2 passing touchdowns to tie it at 14-14 after they were down 14-0 here in the second quarter. And so they'd be tied going into halftime. After that, Meeker would score a touchdown, taking the lead, but Hayden Camp comes up big again, gets another passing touchdown to tie it at 20-20 here in the third quarter here. Hayden Camp really keeping them in this game here, but Buena Vista would go ahead and take the lead following that Jacob Phelps passing touchdown here. And they wouldn't look back, as Trey Cardwell will get another rushing touchdown. Phelps would get another rushing touchdown to seal this game, as Buena Vista wins a good one, 41-29, getting their mojo back. They're at 4-2. They're looking pretty good here. Hayden Camp looked pretty good here, so keep that in mind here. Meeker, you're not in panic mode. I mean, you lost a close one here. They're going to have to finish next time, though. Moving on, though, Flatirons, they beat Manual 36-20. They moved to 4-2. Now, Flatirons, they have Sheridan, Highland, and Estes Park to end the season. If they want to guarantee their chances to make the playoffs, or at least have a good chance of making it, they have to win their league and win out here. Manual, they're in a similar position. They have to win out, but they're going to also need teams in front of them to lose if they want to make the playoffs. Moving on, though, Monte Vista versus Trinidad. Monte Vista beats them 68-6, and that will wrap up the Friday night games here. Coming up next, we have Kodey. He went to the Bell game between Pueblo Central and Centennial, a historical game, oldest rivalry in Colorado and on this side of the country, so he'll talk about that. And then we have Gideon as well. I went with him to this game between Greeley Central and Greeley West. They're going to talk about those games before we talk about Saturday.
Hey, y'all, welcome back to the Playmakers Corner podcast. I am going to be recapping the battle for the bell between Pueblo Centennial and Pueblo Central, one of the most historic rivalries in the entire country and the oldest one west of the Mississippi. So, to get things started here, first off, huge shout out to Dutch Clark Stadium and just the hospitality in the community of Pueblo. Very, very fun atmosphere to have attended. Lots of very pleasant fans in the stands, and overall just a great time that I felt welcomed and enjoyed the game. But let's go ahead and jump into the recap here. This rivalry, for those who don't know, we learned about this from a fan view documentary that I highly recommend going and checking out, Between Two Rivers. And this rivalry has been around since 1892. Now, this isn't they haven't played every single year due to varying circumstances throughout the long period of time that this rivalry has lasted. However, it's still very interesting and, it's still very historic. And so they play for a bell, and it either rings blue or red, depending on who wins. And so to start this game, Pueblo Central, they elected to receive, actually. And there were definitely some jitters here for Pueblo Central at the start. There is a false start on the very first play after they took the kick to the 49-yard line, and then a toss was bobbled where, the back was just looking upfield first, but Central recovered the bobbled toss, but that set up 2nd and 20, and then number 14 for Pueblo Centennial blew up the run, that being Blake Roberts, and right from the get-go, they got 3rd and 23, another false start here, setting up 3rd and 28. They already wheel out a trick play on this opening drive, actually, as they do a halfback toss pass. And, it wasn't even a bad throw, but Pueblo Centennial looked pretty ready for it. And number 3 for Pueblo Centennial did break up the pass, who is also the quarterback for Centennial. But anyways, let's go ahead and jump back on track here. They punt the ball. Pueblo Centennial gets the ball on their own 30 with 10 minutes in the first. And on the very first play, number 55 for Central swallows up the run at the line of scrimmage. But then there's a jet sweep to number 18 for Pueblo Centennial here, who does get a first down and some. So on the next play, there's a little bit of a fumble, but there's a recovery. And then there's a rollout, and number 3 finds number 11. It looks like that is going to be Jaden Hudren on the reception from Trinity Fesuluai, I want to say is how you say it. And, this Centennial team is moving the ball fairly well. That goes for about 8, and they run a QB sneak for a first. There's a handoff to number 87, who's going to be Tayton Montoya, and he gets all the way to the opposing 27-yard line. Centennial takes a timeout here, and then a screen is overthrown. They do a quarterback keeper for 3, and on 3rd and 7, the lead blocker doesn't get ahead of the runner, and the run goes nowhere. And so on 4th and 7, Pueblo Centennial tries a field goal attempt, and that is no good. So Central gets the ball, and with just under 5 minutes left, they just go back-to-back gut runs. They're keeping it simple. And on 3rd and, they just have short runs over and over again. They all get swallowed up before on 4th and 8, they do a fake punt direct snap to Amari Brown, who gets all the way to the other 32-yard line. So after having, negative scrimmage yards to this point in the game on this second drive, Amari Brown gets this direct snap and is just running wild in the open field until he gets to the other side of midfield. But I think after that, you could tell that the jitters are gone, that the focus is there, and that this game is ready to be taken seriously for Central, or that they're dialed in, I should say. And so on the other side of the field, number 87 for Centennial makes a great tackle in open space on Amari Brown, and then there's another gut run setting up 3rd and 8, and then there's a handoff to number 22 for Pueblo Central. That is going to be none other than Michael Montoya, who was pretty reliably picking up like 5 yards a carry on this night. And he does so here, setting up 4th and 2, and then they do another gut run with him for the first down. And on the next play, the quarterback keeps here for Central, but gets dogpiled by the Bulldogs, and that would conclude the end of the first. And so Pueblo Central, they have the ball on the 19-yard line going in. There's a false start, and that pushes them back to the 24. But then Amari Brown gets a handoff left. He has a nice jump cut into a massive lane that's just so open. Great job to this Central offensive line on this one in the downfield blocking. And Amari Brown does score. He wins the race and also carries a defender for like 5 yards into the end zone. And on the conversion, they go for 2 and get it, and they are up 8-0 with 11:50 in the first half. Central, they try to onside it, but Centennial recovers on the 49-yard line. Number 22 for the defense fills in at the line of scrimmage, and that is going to go nowhere. And then I'm not exactly sure what happens here, but Pueblo Centennial's quarterback, number 3, gets hurt, and number 11 has to jump in at quarterback. And honestly, I think that this is where the game essentially ends. There's just not a passing game readily available for Centennial after this, and they become one-dimensional, and Central is focused on stopping the run. So Centennial eventually has to punt on this drive. Central, they get the ball on the 21-yard line, and they are just running crazy over this Bulldog defense. They get a run for 8, another run for a first. They get number 22, once again, Michael Montoya, runs for 8. Then they run another gut run for a first down. Amari Brown runs for 12. Another gut run from Montoya. Then Amari gets a first down the right side on a toss. Eventually, they end up on 3rd and 3, and they do a rollout for 7 and setting up 1st and goal before number 22, Michael Montoya, pounds it in from like the 1-yard line, and then they do a jet sweep to number 8 here, who's the junior wide receiver Josiah Barella, and that puts Central up 16-0. They try an onside kick once again, and Centennial has the ball at the 47, and they run back-to-back one-route passes, and they both fail before, finally getting some yards on a run on 3rd down. And on 4th and 2, Central takes a timeout, and Centennial calls a quarterback keeper. That gets blown up, but number 55 gets called for a face mask, and the Bulldogs get bailed out here for a first down before doing back-to-back runs, setting up 3rd and 1. They hand off to Blake Roberts, number 14, who carries through the hole for a first down. This is, 2 first downs on this drive. It's starting to feel a little bit like that first drive, but this would not continue as eventually they face 4th and 9, and Centennial lines up to kick basically a 50-yard field goal. It's nowhere close. It's caught by Pueblo Central, and it's returned to like the 40-yard line, but then a horse collar, it's returned to the 29, and then a horse collar puts it at the 44. Really, really dumb idea trying to go for a 50-yard field goal in this game. But, the ball ends up on the 44 with 7 seconds. 2 deep passes, that takes us to halftime, 16-0. Centennial starts with the ball at half. As you recall, Central did want to start with the ball. And, they come out with something tricky. They run a reverse, and they should throw this pass, but the runner just doesn't have time to see it, and so he tucks and runs and picks up a few yards. However, if they were able to get this pass off, it probably could have been a score or at least a 20 to 30-yard gain. But they run a fake screen wheel. The wheel is covered, so they try and throw the screen, and that gets batted, and Centennial, on a drive that probably should have had points, ends up having to punt. Now Central, they start on the 46-yard line. They have a couple of runs and get a first down, this time number 8 picking up this first down. And they drive, get on the other side of the field here, and eventually end up in a 4th and 10 situation from around the 20-ish yard line here. And they run a reverse to Amari Brown, who loads up, and is left-handed, by the way, which took me by surprise, but loads up and finds Caden Clay for probably the dagger, and it is the dagger. Caden Clay goes up for this pass and brings it in, and Central's up 22-0 with 5 minutes and 14 seconds left in the third. Now, Centennial starts the next drive on their own 32. They have a couple of runs on 3rd and 2, and Centennial, they get a first here, but a lineman commits one of the most blatant holds I've maybe ever seen, and it comes back. So on 3rd and 5, they run the exact same thing the other way, and it doesn't work. 4th and 5, they call a QB sneak, and this is about the time that I stopped taking notes, because on 4th and 5, a QB sneak, like that's the sign of defeat. That is an admission of defeat, I would even say. And so Central, they have the ball on the 38 going in, and with 2 minutes 52 seconds left in the third quarter, they run all the way to the other side of the field before the fourth quarter starts. In the fourth quarter, Central would score one more touchdown. I would go down to the field and start recording the celebration, the ringing of the bell. The bell rings blue this year as Pueblo Central does go on to defeat Pueblo Centennial 30-0. Amari Brown was named the MVP of this game, as he should be, since he threw a touchdown as well as ran for 2 others, and he was also making some plays on defense, I might add. But Amari Brown impressed heavily. The Pueblo Central Wildcats have a very solid offensive attack, running the football and everything like that. So, like I said, fantastic game for Pueblo Central, and that would make 4 years in a row here that Central has beaten Pueblo Centennial. These seniors have known nothing but beating Pueblo Centennial since they got here, and unfortunately for Pueblo Centennial, they do not know how, or they've never experienced how to beat Pueblo Central in this football game. Pueblo Central, these back-to-back years, they have won 72-0 in the score margin. So Pueblo Centennial, some serious soul-searching to do. I think that losing your quarterback is where this completely goes wrong, if I got to be completely real. After he left and they could not pass the ball, and the run game just became the only focus for the Central defense, there wasn't too much that they could really do about that. So, feels bad, man, for Centennial and the Bulldogs, who will just have to look forward to next year. But even bigger celebration and kudos to Pueblo Central, who just looked so confident and solid in this win, as they should be, honestly. And they'll look to keep this rolling, and the next matchup will. There will be another Battle of the Bell, and we'll see what it rings next year. But for now, Pueblo Central, they are 4-2 now following that win, and they get to play Sierra at home next week. That's a pretty winnable game. Then they have games against Lewis Palmer, Harrison, and Pueblo South. There's a pretty decent chance that I think Central could potentially run the table. I'm looking at that Harrison game a little bit, maybe a little bit concerned for Pueblo Central, but they looked really good in this game against Pueblo Centennial. And the only teams that they've lost to are playoff teams. You got Pueblo East that they lost to 39-33. That's one of our top 10 ranked teams. And then Heritage, who they lost 47-6, but that's a solid 4A program that they lost to. So Pueblo Central got those games ahead of them. Pueblo Centennial with some huge question marks. Don't know the status of the quarterback's health. We obviously wish that he does have a nice recovery, but they now fall to 2-4, the inverse of Central, before playing Harrison, Sierra, Pueblo South, and Lewis Palmer. They might be able to go 2-2 in those games, but that game was critical in hopefully building momentum heading into league, and they just fall short. Thank you so much to the teams for hosting. Thanks so much for the community for being so pleasant. And thank you, Pueblo, for having such a historic rivalry, and FanView for putting us onto that rivalry. And yes, enjoy the rest of the episode.
Hello, everyone. This is Gideon, and today I will be doing the recap for the rivalry game between Greeley Central and Greeley West. Simon and I both popped out to District 6 Stadium in Greeley this past Friday. Central won this matchup for the first time in a very long time last year, so West was out for blood. For the purpose of simplicity, I'm going to call Greeley Central Central and Greeley West West during this recap. Thank you, and on to the game. In the first quarter, Central was technically supposed to start the game on defense. However, the West receiver dropped the kickoff, and kicker Lupe Guzman recovered it to give the Wildcats the ball. After an incompletion, Alfredo Gonzalez III ran for 3. QB Genoa Trujillo threw an absolute dot to Isaiah Asensio, who dropped it. This eventually led to a 4th and 10, where Guzman punted it 30 yards. Gonzalez had 3 straight great tackles, but generally bad exterior run defense negated that. Jaden Anzurez and Roger Ordonez forced a fumble, which was recovered by Eric Hernandez. On offense, Carlos Cardoza got a good run, but a bad snap led to a fumble, which was fortunately recovered by Gonzalez. A pass then went off a receiver's hands, and after a holding call, the Wildcats were on 4th and 20. The punt would not have been a first down. Ernie Tenorio got a tackle to help force a punt in the first set of downs after 4th and 1. After an unknown 5-yard penalty caused a 1st and 15, Gonzalez ran for 1, but then an interception was thrown under immense pressure. Central could not stop the running touchdown, but they potentially tipped the PAT to make it only 0-6 with 2:42 left in the first. The onside kick was recovered by Jose Temodul, followed by a run by Cardoza. There was a false start and then a fumble. Trujillo got a tackle, followed by a fumble forced by Tenorio, that was then recovered by Asensio. Trujillo ran to end the first quarter. Central started the second quarter with Trujillo throwing to Guzman for a first down. Cardoza then ran for a first down of his own, after which Diego Strait faked a handoff for 7 yards. The Wildcats went for it on 4th and 2, and Cardoza fought through the defense for a first down. However, this was then negated by an unsportsmanlike conduct call. Trujillo ran, and then Gonzalez was tackled out after a 5-yard gain. After a tackle for loss, Central called a timeout with 6:56 left in the half. Asensio then had a 25-yard catch and go, and Gonzalez had a 3-yard run to bring it to the 2-yard line. However, after a delay of game and an allowed sack in a terrible set of downs, on 4th down they failed to convert, and it was a turnover on the 2. They then took a timeout with 4 minutes, 20 seconds left in the half. After an offsides, Gonzalez got a tackle, then Will Baxley did the same, followed by Daniel Centennial catching an interception. A pass got tipped, but Gonzalez ran for a first down. After a penalty, Centennial ran for 4, and there was almost an interception going into the half, where they only trailed 0-6. Opening the third quarter, Cardoza returned the kickoff for 25 yards through a lot of contact, but there was a penalty away from the play that brought it back. Trujillo threw to Centennial for 7, lowered the defense offsides, and then Anzures caught for a first down. There was then a bad set of downs where there was an incompletion, a false start, a tackle for loss, and then a punt, which went out at the 10. They then had a group tackle, followed by a shared tackle by Germán Reyes Rocha and Hernandez. Centennial got a tackle, followed by Guzman, Adhir Morales Munoz, and Hernandez, which forced a punt. Gonzalez had a carry for 1, followed by a pass to Guzman for the first down. Trujillo scrambled through contact to find Gonzalez for 5, but holding call canceled that out. Gonzalez ran for 3 and then ran again to convert a 4th and 2. Hernandez had some great blocking, which helped allow a run for Centennial. Gonzalez ran for 25, which set up a 1st and goal on the 8 to end the 3rd. Opening the 4th quarter, after an incompletion, Gonzalez got it to the 2-yard line after Trujillo was almost sacked. It was 4th and goal, and after a timeout with 10:55 left on the clock, Gonzalez was able to punch through the defense to get the touchdown, after which the 2-point conversion attempt failed. This tied the game at 6 with 10:53 to go in the contest. Kaiden Farner pushed out the return, and Centennial got the tackle, but then he got hurt on the play. Albi Fabele II also got a tackle, but then was injured as well. The Wildcats were lured off sides, but then Gonzalez and Anzures shared a tackle to help with what the announcer called big stop time. Guzman had a tackle, but then some bad run defense made it closer. Ernie Tenorio got a tackle, but on the next play, a touchdown got called back due to an illegal shift. However, very close to the goal, Central was called for offsides. Brandon Hernandez Rosas helped slow down a run, which left Reyes Rocha able to clean it up with a tackle for loss. Reyes Rocha then got another clutch tackle, but on the next play, Hernandez Rosas was a hair's breadth away from sacking the QB when a scramble led to a touchdown. They then let in the 2-point conversion to trail 6-14 with 2:21 left in the game, meaning that the 2-minute drill was extremely literal in this case. Gonzalez managed to get 25 yards, but then on a throwout, Anzures hyperextended his knee, meaning the main left side receiving target was out. Centennial had a shake and bake run for 6, and then Gonzalez ran for another 20. But then the worst happened. An interception was caught, and that ultimately ended the game for the Wildcats. The defensive playmaker of the game for Greeley Central was Germán Reyes Rocha. Reyes Rocha stepped up in the biggest moments to get the stops that would have won Central the game. He did everything in his power to ensure that nothing would happen in his vicinity. He got key late tackles for loss and played solid defense all throughout the game. We try to read and see what our tackles are doing, says Reyes Rocha. On that last stand, I know it didn't end good for us, but we collectively went out and gave it our all. It didn't end up how we wanted, but we did what we could. We studied number 22, David Lopez, and that was our game plan. We game planned for him, but it just didn't go our way. The offensive playmaker of the game for the Greeley Central Wildcats is Eric Hernandez. Hernandez was an absolute beast on the O-line for the Wildcats. The 6'1", 295-pound outside guard for Central was opening all the holes that he could for the run game, and at one point I saw him block 5 different guys on one play. Hernandez is just one of those linemen that is extremely hard to keep in his spot. He is a really good obstacle. The playmaker of the game for Greeley Central in this contest was Alfredo Gonzalez III. Gonzalez is the reason that Central almost came back. He scored the sole tutty for Central in this game, along with getting multiple 20-plus yard carries in the 4th quarter. He played his heart out and managed to get the ball to the 25 with under a minute left. With 1 or 2 more chances, he may have gotten that ball in. Most of the time, I try to make sure that the team's on point and knows our assignments. On defense, I just try to do my part as best I can and see how it affects the team. as the crowd cheered for West in the background. If we were to get a dub tonight, Gonzalez paused for 10 seconds. It would have been good on our side, but we just had so many mistakes. If we didn't have so many mistakes, it would have ended differently. It's good to see a player that cares that much about their team, and Greeley Central has a good leader. Now, on to Greeley West. But before we talk about West, I will talk about a trend that annoys me a lot. Light color on light color jersey color schemes. This happened with Sterling earlier in the season as well. The jersey that West was wearing was admittedly cool, as it was white, blue, and gold. However, the coloring of dusty blue numbers on the white made it impossible to read. If it is difficult for me to read the numbers from 10 feet away when my attention is entirely devoted to covering this game and being accurate, how do you expect college coaches and scouts to feel when they're watching grainy footage and have to look at a bunch of players that day and don't have the time for unreadable jerseys? It'll be hard for them to read, and for the same reason as a resume, you want your jerseys to be easy to look at. Mini rants over, and now onto West's side of the matchup. West was supposed to start this game with possession, but the kickoff receiver dropped the ball, which put them on defense. However, once on defense, they played pretty solidly. Once on offense, David Lopez ran through a few guys, and then Jose Salas ran for 19. These are two names that you are going to be hearing a lot. Lopez ran for 6, and then Jose Salas got a first down. Cole Knorr showed some great aggression while blocking for Jose Salas, who got 15 yards. However, on the next play, the Spartans lost a fumble. Knorr almost got a sack, and West played some really solid D before using a timeout with 6:35 to go in the first. On offense, Jose Salas ran for short and helped make it a 3rd and 3. After another short run by Jose Salas, the Spartans had 4th and 1 and decided to go for it. The pass barely grazed the fingers of Eric Sardina, and they had a turnover on downs. Lopez got a tackle, followed by Jose Salas and Jermaine Araya sharing one of their own for loss. Jacob Flores, the new starting safety, then got an interception. Salas then ran for the tutty, but the PAT was no good, leading it to be only 6-0 with 2:42 to go in the quarter. Diego Guzman kicked onside, but the Spartans failed to cover the ball. However, either Amaya or Jackson Leonetti caused and then recovered a fumble. Jose Salas ran for 8, but then West relinquished a fumble of their own. After group tackle, there was an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty, and then there was another group tackle to end the first. Cortez Valerio Orbixon started off the second quarter with a tackle. There was a personal foul, and then Flores got a tackle for loss that really sounded like it hurt. After some extracurricular activity between some linemen, Clyde Pacias and Amaya shared a tackle. To help force 4th and 11, Brian Moreno got a tackle, and Knorr got a sack. This forced a turnover on downs, and on offense there was a fumble that was barely recovered by Jose Salas, who then ran for 5. They then forced an offsides penalty, and Julian Salas ran for 4. Pacias then ran for 2, but got hurt on the play. Jose Salas ran for a first down, and Julian Salas threw to Lopez to make it 4th and short. Jose Salas then ran for another first down. After a false start, Julian Salas ran, but then a good pass went incomplete. The following pass was then intercepted. Going into the half, they played all right defense, almost making an interception on the half-closing Hail Mary attempt, leading 6-0. Somehow, however, the Spartans committed a personal foul going into the half, which set their kickoff back to the 30. They fell for an offsides lure, and they were allowing a few passes through. Jose Salas got a tackle, followed by Amaya getting within inches of a deflection. Moreno then got a tackle to force a punt, and after a tackle for loss, Jose Salas ran for 9, and then again for first down. He then ran once more for 8, which was brought back for excessive hugging. Jose Salas then added 3 more to his sheet, but then the Spartans were forced to punt. Jose Salas then got another tackle, followed by a tackle by Lopez. After a timeout with 25 seconds left in the third, Ashton Holmbo got a tackle for a loss to close up the third 6-0. Entering the fourth quarter, after an offsides, an almost sack, and a penalty, West led in a touchdown with 10:53 left in the game. They were able to stop the conversion, which made it tied at 6. After some trouble recovering the kickoff, Pasillas made it 20 yards. Following this, Jose Salas ran for 5 and then once more for 8. After tempting Central offsides, Jose Salas then ran for 2, and then Lopez carried the rock for a first down. Lopez then had 2 more carries, and then Jose Salas ran for 15 yards, through a few guys, and he had an intense stiff arm. He then carried the ball across 7 more hash marks, and eventually led the Spartans to a 3rd and 1 on the 8-yard line. Lopez ran it, and then Jose Salas ran for the first down. A touchdown was called back for an illegal shift, and then Jose Salas ran for short. Salas then ran for a tutty, and Lopez caught the 2-point conversion from Julian Salas with 2:21 left on the clock to bring the West lead to 8 at 14-6. Holmbo almost got a sack, and then pass interference made me concerned. Flores then made a huge play by catching an interception within the 10-yard line, and after a timeout with 1:19 left on the clock, Lopez carried the ball 6 yards, and Jose Salas carried the ball for a first down to close this game out. The defensive playmaker of the game for the Spartans was Jacob Flores. Flores had himself a pretty good night, and this was his first game starting at safety, and I'd say he was pretty darn effective. He had 2 interceptions and 1 really painful-looking tackle, and he came in clutch. The first interception set up the first touchdown, which gave West the lead early in the game, and the second interception ended up sealing it for Greeley West with under 1:30 left in the game. At 6'3", the junior was really hard to get a pass over, and his development over the next year is going to be key to the Spartans' defensive future. The offensive playmaker of the game for the Spartans is David Lopez. Lopez, as previously stated, was the main game plan focus for the Wildcats, and he proved them right on offense. Lopez was a machine, blasting holes through the D-line and getting a bunch of carries over the course of the game. He is really hard to stop at 6'1", 230, and he has good hands, evidenced by his catch in the end zone for the conversion over 2 defenders. "I just gotta do me," says Lopez. "I came in knowing that they're gonna be chopping at my knees and going for my legs, because that's what everybody's been doing, so I've just gotta do my thing." Somehow, Lopez is only a junior, so he is likely to vastly improve going into next season. Look out, Northern Colorado. David Lopez is coming. The playmaker of the game for the Spartans was Jose Salas. The senior running back is being a great influence for the West Spartans. He had 2 touchdowns and so many carries that my hand got tired writing his name in the recap. Salas is a good leader, and he credited all of his success on the night to the O-line. "I have to thank my linemen first," says Salas. "Without them, I couldn't have scored or gotten those yards. I could drive a truck through the holes that they made. It didn't matter that they were going for my ankles. My linemen came and picked me up every single play. I wouldn't be here without them." It cannot be understated the effects that Jose has on his brother Julian, who is starting for the first time on the varsity level during the season, and his leadership is going to be sorely missed by the Spartans heading into next season. In summary, this game was a down-to-the-wire nail-biter. Most of these guys grew up playing with and against each other in elementary and middle school, and they have left their mark on this storied rivalry. This could have gone either way, but West's defense ended up coming in clutch. That's not to say that Central's D was not clutch either, as they did make huge stops at the right time. They just got overpowered by the 1-2 punch of Lopez and Jose Salas. Moving forward, these teams have a tough go at it. Greeley West, now 2-5, will keep moving through the 4A League 2 and face the 4-3 Windsor Wizards at home. And, to quote Germán Reyes Rocha, Greeley Central is headed up to Grand Junction Central for next week, so that's a long trip. The Wildcats will hope to improve their record from 1-6 against the 2-5 Warriors, which should be an interesting matchup. Best of luck to Greeley West and Greeley Central during the rest of your seasons, And now, on to the next. Take it away, Simon.
All right, thank you, Gideon. Thank you, Kodey, for those great breakdowns there of what happened. Two great rivalry games, like I said, super heated. They play hard against each other. That's just something to expect. But let's move on to Saturday, October 9th. We have a couple matchups here, not too many, but we have a couple. Horizon versus Rangeview. Horizon gets the first dub of the season, 20-17 over Rangeview. Alex Birch made some pretty big plays here. He had a long 48 touchdown pass. He had a short rushing touchdown, and all those contributed to helping win this game as Horizon gets on the board here. Moving on, we got Loveland versus Grand Junction Central. Loveland wins 41-0, taking care of business. They got Skyline, Windsor, and Longmont to end the season. To be honest, those are bigger games for those other teams than Loveland, who has basically guaranteed themselves a spot in the playoffs and probably a top 12 seed in the playoffs at that. Moving on, we got Thomas Jefferson versus Far Northeast. Far Northeast wins 38-0, moving to 4-3 and keeping their playoff hopes alive. We'll see if they could continue to win, which in general will just be key to them making the playoffs. Then we got Northfield versus Kennedy. Kind of a shocking game here. Kennedy, with the upset win, takes down Northfield here, 32-27. Isaac Cisneros, 17 of 23. 290 passing yards, 3 touchdowns. He also had a carry for a rushing touchdown. And just like that, he is definitely a Playmaker of the Week candidate. Also throw in his receiver, Juan Gallegos III, 5 receptions, 173 receiving yards, and catching all 3 of those receiving touchdowns, doing his thing there. Kennedy at this point still has a chance of making the playoffs, but they do probably have to win out. They got Fort Morgan, Lincoln, Lutheran, and Holy Family here, so we'll see how that goes down. Northfield, they're only 4-2, so they're still in a pretty good spot here, but losing their second straight game, that's kind of tough here. They do get Holy Family, Lutheran, Fort Morgan, and Lincoln as well to end the season, and so we'll see what goes down from there moving forward. On to some 2A games here, though. We got Elizabeth versus Kent Denver. Elizabeth wins 38-14, moving to 5-1 here in a pretty good spot. That TCA Elizabeth game will most likely decide the league at the end of the season. So there you go. Speaking of TCA, they go ahead and obliterate Denver West 51-0. They stay undefeated. No Ethan Aragundi in this game without their star running back, but a running back by committee rushed for 414 rushing yards and 7 rushing touchdowns, with senior Caden Rusin getting 103 rushing yards and 3 rushing touchdowns there, leading the squad. Moving down to 1A football here, we have Strasburg versus Denver Christian. Strasburg shows off their offensive firepower and beats Denver Christian 56-21 as they move to a dominant 5-1 and are basically a lock for the playoffs and a top 8 seed in the playoffs. Speaking of top 8 seeds, we have Lyman versus Ray, 2 teams here in the top 3 here. Lyman would actually just barely get away with a 13-8 win over Ray here. Casey Midgap, he did throw 3 interceptions, kind of a tough go here. Obviously, if you didn't throw one of those picks, then maybe they would have been in a better spot. But Lyman's quarterback, Jordan Rockwell, also threw 3 interceptions, but he was 6 of 9 for 113 yards and 2 touchdowns here in this one, scoring the 2 that would allow Lyman to go ahead and beat Ray. Speaking of those 2 touchdowns, Keon Bandy caught both of those for 55 receiving yards as well. Real quick, Gabe Schubarth, 22 carries, 78 yards, as he was mostly contained. But Traden Marks, 3 sacks in this game, turning up for Lyman here and doing his thing. Big part of the defense, and I still got more guys to talk about here on defense. Keon Bandy doing his thing on defense as well. He had an interception and forced a fumble, and then Jordan Rockwell and Arnold here, a senior, also had an interception. And so Hey, close win here, but Ray played Lyman the closest out of any team here, and so they should be pretty happy about that. Moving forward, they should have the film they need to beat Lyman if they face off with them in the playoffs, but we will see. Playmaker, Playmaker of the game here, I think we'll probably have to go to Keon Bandy, who once again had 21 rushing yards. He had 55 receiving yards, 2 receiving touchdowns. On defense, he did his thing as well here. He had 8 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, had an interception, and had a forced fumble in this one as Lyman escapes Ray in a close one. And then the last 1A game I want to talk about here is Centauri versus Del Norte. Centauri taking care of business as they should, 57-0. Centauri moves to 4-2. They don't really play too many tough opponents here. Their next real test will be near the end of the season against Monte Vista, and so that'll be important for them, though. Centauri, though, Layden Curtis, 5 of 8 for 106 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Run game was very strong here. Stockerbrand, the senior, he had 95 rushing yards. You had Dylan Vasquez, he had a rushing touchdown, also had 52 rushing yards. Chaz Holman, 27 rushing yards and a touchdown. Layden Curtis, the quarterback, he also had a rushing touchdown. Chaz Holman, also 78 receiving yards and 2 receiving touchdowns. As Centauri is still dangerous, but finding ways to continue to win. Now, the last game I want to talk about is actually Pine Creek versus Regis Jesuit, a matchup between 2 top 10 teams here in 5A. I was actually able to attend this game, and so here we go. It was in Colorado Springs, by the way. But to start this game, there was not a lot going on offense. Both defenses playing well. There are actually 4 punts between the 2 teams to start this game here, so nothing too crazy going on here, but it would actually be Regis Jesuit who will get the excitement going here. With 4 minutes 58 seconds left, they will get the ball. They would start with running it and whatnot, and so they'd hand it off, and then Xander Carroll on a read option would also run it. And so here we go, it's 3rd and 10 here, and so 3rd and 10, Regis Jesuit, they need to get the first down to, avoid another punt here. And so here's what happens. Xander Carroll, he drops back and then drops an absolute dime to number 17, DeAndre Barnes. And that's an 80-yard touchdown here. With 3 minutes 32 seconds left, Regis Jesuit goes ahead and takes the nice 7-0 lead after the PAT. Now, Pine Creek, they're trying to get something going here. They go ahead and get a nice throw to Elijah Roy. He gets them a nice first down with a 10-plus yard reception. Then after that, they go ahead and hand it off to Mason Miller, and he gets another first down up the middle. And that's just as the quarter ends. And so here we go. Pine Creek, they're on the 11 with a fresh set of first downs to start this quarter. They're in the red zone here. They go ahead and drop back on 3rd down and 7 here, trying to pass it. And then Regis Jesuit goes ahead and intercepts this one. I believe that is Hayden Moore, I want to say, who goes ahead and jumps this and gets the interception and turnover to go ahead and kill this promising Pine Creek drive that would have tied this thing up. And so here we go. They're starting on the 5 going forward after an Xander Carroll run. Number 6 for Regis Jesuit. That's Aiden Chase. Excuse me there. He goes ahead and tears off a nice 40-plus yard run. And so that gets them out of their own end zone, and that puts them in a good spot basically across midfield here. And so Carroll, he then drops back, tries to pass it, and then Pine Creek's Justice Nicholson goes ahead and intercepts him. Carroll, he was rolling out. I don't exactly know who he was trying to throw to, but he basically throws right to Justice Nicholson. And so he makes them pay. And so Pine Creek gets the ball back, and they start on the 35 4-yard line. There's about 10 minutes left here in this game, and so after a handoff, they go ahead and find number 10. Cameron Cooper finds number 10 for Pine Creek on an out route. That gives them a first down, but then right after that, Cameron Cooper, he's rolling out right, he tries to throw it, and Josiah Harris for Regis Jesuit makes an amazing interception where he has to toe tap this one in just to stay in bounds. But regardless, that kills another Regis Jesuit drive, kills another Pine Creek drive, and Regis Jesuit goes ahead and takes over here. But a couple plays later, that's 3rd and 17 after a tough holding call on Regis. Number 1, Ramon Pacheco for Pine Creek makes a great play here, kind of out-muscles Barnes, the receiver, and dives for the interception here to go ahead and shut down the Regis Jesuit drive. And so Pine Creek once again takes over on the 40 with about 7 minutes and 10 seconds left here in this game. So a lot of picks here in the second quarter. Some sloppy quarterback play, to be honest with you. And so here's what happened. They try running it up the middle with Mason Miller. He is tackled for loss to start. Then he gets those 2 yards back. And then they try to throw it to Mason Miller on the screen. It's a little late. And Mason Miller tries to hurdle somebody. He is upended. He definitely hits his head kind of hard on the field here. But regardless, he comes off the field. Penalty is thrown on that play, but it's declined. And so Pine Creek elects to punt it. And so here we go, Regis Jesuit, they get it with about 5:38 left on the 22. Anthony Medina runs outside, gets 16 and a first. Then another Medina carry, he gets another 15 plus yards, really 20 plus yards to put them on the 30-yard line. After those big runs there, Pine Creek, they get some stops, and so it is 4th and 9 here. And so Regis Jesuit, they decide to go ahead and go for it here. And so here's what they drop Xander Carroll back. They have someone running the slant. Carroll, he throws a nice slant route here, and that receiver makes a couple guys miss and goes 20 plus yards to the house for a touchdown as they take a good 14-0 lead with about 2 minutes and 36 seconds left here in this game. Pine Creek, they are struggling on offense here, and the struggles continue as they go 3 and out, and they go ahead and punt it. Regis Jesuit, they go ahead and get the ball. They do have a chance to drive down the field, and so that's what they're doing. They call a timeout with about a second left on 4th and 15. They're on the other side of the field. They passed the midway point at this point, and they are trying to get something going, but then Xander Carroll, he drops back and he gets sacked by number 31 of Pine Creek. That is Braden Mallory, and that would basically end the half with Regis Jesuit up 14-0. And honestly, not too much happens from here on out. Regis Jesuit is very much in control of this game. Pine Creek would receive to start this thing. They would drive down, get into just about the red zone, and then Regis Jesuit would get another interception that would go ahead and kill that drive there. I want to say it was Kai Shelton who got that interception. Regardless, that is the second Pine Creek drive where they get into the red zone and then they can't score. And then after that, Regis Jesuit, they just put together a very, very long drive here. Driving basically the length of the field here, taking up a lot of time here, not giving Pine Creek too much time to work with here. And finally, they get an Anthony Medina rushing touchdown with about 4 minutes left here in the third quarter. And so at this point, they're up 21-0. So there you go there. Look, Pine Creek, they are struggling to move the ball. And they continue to struggle. They can't run the ball super well. Throwing wise, there's a couple, just bad decisions there by the quarterback. And Regis, their pass rush is getting there too. So there you go there. And so Regis Jesuit will actually score another rushing touchdown with about 5 minutes left to go up 28-0. Pine Creek would get a garbage time rushing touchdown from Mason Miller, but doesn't matter, doesn't affect the game. Regis Jesuit still wins 28-7, getting a good win over Pine Creek, a good quality win against a good team here. And so now they're 4-3. Pine Creek is now 5-2 on the season, but definitely a good statement win by Regis Jesuit to keep them going here as they get Chaparral Legend and Fountain Fort Carson to end the season. Alright, now the last thing I do want to recap is some girls high school flag football news here. We weren't able to go to the tournament, sadly, here. But Kodey will be going to the Denver Broncos training facility here this Saturday. That is October 15th, to go ahead and watch the first ever Colorado Girls High School Flag Football Tournament. The winner will be the first ever state champion, technically. So there you go there. But I do have some news from the Jeffco League. So this last Saturday, each district had tournaments to determine the teams, the top four teams that would go to the Broncos training facility and compete for a state title here. And so they have these district tournaments here to determine the district champs and then 3 other teams that would represent the school district in that tournament this week. And so in the Jeffco League, what we know is that Arvada West went ahead and they won 26-6 over Chatfield in the first ever Jeffco District Tournament Championship game. And so there you go. They are your Jeffco champs, Arvada West there. And if you look back at a couple episodes ago, I was able to watch Arvada West play. They looked good, very well coached. They did their thing and whatnot. And so they should be proud of making it that far. This was expected, in my opinion. I wouldn't have expected anything less. They did have a slight scare against Columbine, it sounded like here in this tournament. They needed a defensive stop on the 2-point conversion in the final minute against Columbine, and they got one as they beat them 14-12 before going on and beating Chatfield in the Jeffco District Championship. And Chatfield, they had to beat Evergreen 6-0 in overtime to go ahead and move on. And like I said, Arvada West would go and win the first ever Jeffco District Tournament Championship. And so there you go. In my opinion, I've seen them play against other teams as well. They are probably my pick to go ahead and win state this Saturday. So super excited for them and whatnot. And, if you're a fan of football, go ahead and support these teams at the UC Health Training Center here. Like I said, Saturday, October 15th. We got 12 teams. The other top 4 teams from the Denver Public School District and Cherry Creek Public School Districts will be there. So there you go there. Congratulations to Arvada West. And we'll see how this Saturday goes. Like I said, Kodey will be there to cover the entire thing, the entire tournament. And so it should be a lot of fun. All right, now let's talk Playmakers of the Week, brought to you by Code Red Coaching, where the grind to greatness starts with the mind. Learn more at coderedcoaching.com, but they do bring us our Week 7 Playmakers of the Week, and there are a number of fantastic players considered for Playmakers of the Week. Let's go ahead and start in 1A here. In 1A, I got 3. I got Buena Vista's Hayden Camp against Meeker for a league here, in a league game here. He went 7 of 13, 169 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns, 30 rushing yards. So there you go there in a big time dub against Meeker. Then Julio Flores for Wiggins against Holyoke. He ran for 346 rushing yards, 5 rushing touchdowns in a big time dub over Holyoke there. And last but not least, we got Keon Bandy, the junior out of Lyman. 2 receptions, 55 receiving yards for 2 receiving touchdowns. That's all of Lyman's points there, basically. And then on defense, he had 8 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, an interception, and a forced fumble. So with all of that being said, I'm going to have to give it to Hayden Camp out of Buena Vista. Had an excellent game, 3 touchdowns against a very tough Meeker squad to get Buena Vista back on track, most importantly. He looked great in that game, so there you go there. Now moving up to 2A, we got Isaiah Elliott out of the academy. He won 19 of 22 for 289 passing yards, 4 passing touchdowns, 52 rushing yards, 2 rushing touchdowns, and a big-time win against Steamboat Springs. Then we got Florence against Manitou Springs here. Florence's Levi Paxton against Manitou Springs, like I said. 48 passing yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick, but most importantly, ran for 207 rushing yards and 3 rushing touchdowns. Then we got Alamosa's Casey Jones in that game. He threw for 163 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns, also had 82 rushing yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. And then last but not least, we got Landon Clay out of Delta, 8 of 14, 92 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns. He also had 54 rushing yards and 3 rushing touchdowns. And so I'm going to go ahead and have to pick Isaiah Elliott out of the academy. Like I said, 4 passing touchdowns, 2 rushing touchdowns, and a big-time 68-27 win over Steamboat Springs. So there you go there. For 3A, I narrowed it down to 2 players here. I got Ryan Kenny out of Lutheran against Holy Family. He had 26 carries, 174 rushing yards, and 3 rushing touchdowns. And then I also got Durango's Tyler Harms against Summit here. 9 for 9, 193 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns. I'm going to go ahead and give it to Tyler Harms out of Durango here. He had a perfect game going 9 for 9 and had 3 touchdowns. So I feel like I gotta give it to him. So there you go, Tyler Harms out of Durango. Now moving on, we got 4A football here. I got Longmont's Cole Gaddis against Silver Creek. 30 carries, 211 rushing yards, 5 rushing touchdowns. Also had 4 tackles and an interception on defense, contributing to that 40-25 dub. And then I also got Noah Triplett out of Dakota Ridge in a big-time must-need win against Bear Creek on 20 carries, 191 rushing yards, 5 rushing touchdowns, 1 reception, and 36 receiving yards. I'm going to go ahead and give it to Noah Triplett out of Dakota Ridge for his efforts in a big-time win, a blowout win over Bear Creek, but also a much-needed win for Dakota Ridge. So there you go. Now for 5A, we got multiple guys on here. Let's go ahead and start with Ishmael Cece against Smoky Hill. 5 receptions, 116 receiving yards, 3 receiving touchdowns, all done in the first half against Smoky Hill. So he did his thing there. Then I got Legends Jaden Lawrence, the sophomore running back. 7 carries, 137 rushing yards, 3 rushing touchdowns. He also had 4 receptions for 60 receiving yards and a receiving touchdown. Then I got Hayden Moore for Regis Jesuit against Pine Creek. He turned up 14 tackles, 1 sack, 1 interception in that big-time dub against Pine Creek. And then last but not least, I got Mountain Vista's Austin Modreski, 27 of 42, 460 passing yards, 6 passing touchdowns, including the game-winning touchdown, the last-second game-winning touchdown in that game against Rock Canyon here. And so I feel like I got to give it to the sophomore quarterback out of Mountain Vista. That's Austin Modreski, 27-42, 460 passing yards, 6 passing touchdowns, no turnovers, by the way, and the game winner. Come on now, that's easy money. Gotta give it to him out of Mountain Vista for his performance against Rock Canyon. So a lot of great playmakers this week. Like I said, a lot of big time matchups here. So there you go there. But once again, your Week 7 Playmakers of the Week brought to you by Code Red Coaching. In 5A, it's Mountain Vista's Austin Modreski. 4A, it is Dakota Ridge's Noah Triplett. 3A, it is Durango's Tyler Harms. 2A, it's the Academy's Isaiah Elliott. And then in 1A, it is Buena Vista's Hayden Camp. Those are your Playmakers of the Week for Week 7 here in the Colorado High School football season. All right, let's go ahead and talk power rankings here. Let's start on the 1A level, starting at 10. At 10, we got Meeker High School. Kodey says the losing streak continues for Meeker against Buena Vista. And this loss was a little more convincing than the ones last year as far as the perceived gap goes between the two programs. No rest here with another big-time matchup this upcoming week. Absolutely agreed. I'm not going to drop Meeker outside the top 10 just yet, but for now they're here at 10, so there you go. Up next, we got number 9, Gunnison. Kodey said with Meeker losing to Buena Vista, I don't really have an issue moving Gunnison ahead of them, but they'll have to defend this spot in the coming week. Absolutely agreed. Moving on, we got Centauri. Kodey said not knocking on Centauri's big win, just giving Buena Vista credit for their win over a top 10 team. End quote. Agreed there. Moving on, though. At 6, we have 2 teams tied here. We have Wiggins and Buena Vista. Kodey talking about Wiggins, he said big win over Holyoke, but still waiting to see what they're really made of. End quote. Absolutely agreed at this point. I know they're a top 10 team, but all that matters is how they perform against other top 10 teams here, especially coming into the playoffs. So there you go there. About Buena Vista, Kodey said after being down 7-0 at the end of the first quarter, everything came to life for the squad that ended the day with 41 points and a huge league win and a continuation of the win streak over the Cowboys of Meeker, end quote. There you go there. Yeah, absolutely agreed. I think this was a dub that they needed to get. Just in general, like they didn't need to beat them by as much as they did, but they did anyways. And so that is an extra vote of confidence there. And so for that, Buena Vista is tied at 6 with Wiggins. Now in the next spot, we have a tie at 4th between 2 teams, between Yuma and Monte Vista. Kodey talking about Monte Vista, he says this squad has one of their more intriguing games against a quiet 4-1 Ignacio squad, but out of the rest of their games, they'll have chances to prove themselves as one of the top seeds, end quote. About Yuma, Kodey said still undefeated and still rolling. Plenty of tests are still ahead, but expect them to take the number 2 for them. Expect them to take the number 2 spot for themselves with a victory on Friday. Yes, Friday will be a big one there. So yes, absolutely agreed with Monte Vista. I think they should still beat Ignacio though. But anyways, moving on, Kodey didn't have anything to say for number 3 Strasburg. Me neither. They took care of business and it wasn't close as it should be. At 2, though, we got Ray. Kodey said not going to punish Ray since the defense was really locked down outside of a couple big plays. Midcap has got to get better because to win state... Alright, that doesn't... Kodey did not write the best sentence there, but I'm pretty sure he's saying Midcap has got to get better in order to win state. I think that's what he's trying to say here. Anyways, he said, Ray proved to me that they are the most worthy adversary to the Badgers this season. Yep, agreed there. Played them close, but yeah, Casey Midcap, 3 interceptions, that's not good enough. You know, you gotta, don't throw the turnovers, you know what I mean? There's no advantage in that. Just take the sack or throw it away or whatever. But you got to play a cleaner game regardless. Lyman is not a team to be messed with. And that's who's at number 1 for the X straight week. I don't know how long they've been at 1, but they've been here for about a month. And Kodey said, way to pull out the closest game of the year. The Badger defense was on point, and as they always are. But Keon Bandy stepped up on the offensive side, scoring both touchdowns. This kind of close win where they do just enough is a good start, but I can't imagine them only scoring 13 if they see Ray again. Same, but we'll see about that. I mean, the film is there now, so we'll see what happens. Once again, your new power rankings are Meeker at 10, Gunnison at 9, Centauri at 8, tied at 6 is Wiggins and Buena Vista, tied at 4 is Yuma and Monte Vista, 3 Strasburg, 2 Ray, and number 1 Lyman. Moving on though, we got our 2A power rankings here. Honestly, nothing really changed here for the most part, at least 1 through 7. But let's go ahead and start at the top here. At 10, we have a new team joining the top 10, and that is Berthoud for now. Kodey said at 5-1, they find themselves at the 10th spot here where they string together close wins over and over again. We will see how long it could last with a matchup against Eden this week, but this team does have some grit to them. Absolutely agreed there. There are definitely a couple of spots that could have made this 10th spot here, but we both just decided to go with Berthoud, so there you go. Tied at 8, we have Elizabeth and Woodland Park. We both don't really have anything to say about Elizabeth. They took care of business. About Woodland Park, though, Kodey did say, I wanted to skyrocket Woodland to the number 7 spot, but the teams in front of them won, and I might have preferred a more convincing win over La Junta, but they move up from the 10 spot for now. Yeah, agreed there. So there you go. So tied at 8, Elizabeth and Woodland Park. And then from there on, I'm pretty sure it is the exact same as it was last week. But at 7, it's Moffat County, 6, Basalt, 5, the Academy, 4, Florence, 3, Delta, 2, Eden, 1, TCA, as all those teams got dubs this last week. And so your 2A power rankings after week 7 goes Berthoud at 10, Woodland Park and Elizabeth tied for 8th, then Moffat County, Basalt, the Academy, 4, Florence, 3, Delta, 2, Eaton, and number 1 for for over a month now is TCA. So there you go. Those are your 2A rankings. Let's go ahead and move on to 3A. So we definitely have a little bit of a mix-up here in 3A. Starting at number 10, we decided to go with Frederick. They are 4-2 right now. Got a big dub, I believe, over Niwot. There are a lot of teams we considered here. Northfield, Summit were just a couple to name there. They're all kind of in the same spot at 10, though. So there you go there. But we decided on Frederick for now as they re-enter the top 10 here. At number 9, though, we got George Washington. Kodey said, kudos to G-Dub for not only bouncing back from their loss last week, but answering the biggest question I had for them heading into the season, and that was, are they ready for this new league that has more grit than the Denver Prep League they were in last year? Also, I think that they just shut the door on Meade season, which, yes, they basically did. And that's a solid Meade team. Don't let the record fool you any otherwise. So there you go there. George Washington at 9. Now tied for 7th, we got Resurrection Christian and Evergreen. Let's talk about Res first. Res, Kodey said the very first loss of the Cougar season does come against the top dog, that is Roosevelt. I said that, not Kodey. But going on though, Kodey said, and I think that is an alright loss to have as long as they show the ability to learn from it. Absolutely agreed. I mean, it was a close game going into the 4th quarter. They should be proud being, toe-to-toe with them going into the 4th. But they got to finish moving forward. That's what it comes down to. So we'll see what happens for them. Ironically enough, the other team tied at 7th is also the Cougars in Evergreen. Kodey said, the final inch. With the game on the line, the Cougars have shown that the biggest obstacle is themselves. Dropped touchdowns in overtime, silly penalties, getting a field goal blocked. They should be winning these games, but these close losses to the 2 number 2 ranked teams has me very skeptical if they're any more than a 1 playoff win team here. End quote. Yeah, agreed. I mean, they're definitely a top 10 team. They should win in the first round. They really should. After that, we'll see. But, definitely some mistakes, and it's not just on one person. It's the whole team going all around there, including the coaching staff, by the way, going all around there. So we'll see what happens going into the playoffs. A lot can happen between now and then once you're in the playoffs, anything could happen. And so you have to have that mentality, but you also have to be sharper in these situations against good opponents. So there you go. Moving on, though, number 6, we got Pueblo East. Kodey said they move up with the win and a team losing in front of them. Also, kudos on being able to go into coast mode by half when it was 42-8, end quote. Yep, agreed. I know there were probably some suspensions from that Cannon game. It still looked like they were able to get business done, so I'm not really tripping over it. So, there you go there. At 5, we got Durango here. Kodey said the Demons did whatever they felt like against the other top team in their league, as their quarterback was Perfect. That spells perfect. And the run game went ballistic. This front line has championship potential, and with the weapons they have could be dangerous. That is also not a great sentence, but that's okay. We understand what Kodey is saying there, as Durango just dominated. That's all you really need to know. Summit was literally in our top 10 last week, so now they're not. That's how bad Durango beat them. It sucks we can't move them up, but nobody else here in the top 5 really lost, including number 4 Lutheran. Kodey said, good win to start league, and with some of the other members of this league, it seems like it's not going to be very competitive for Lutheran. Keep those starters healthy. Yep, absolutely agreed here. They had a very tough out-of-league schedule to get them ready, so I'm not worried that they're not going to be able to get tested here in the regular season. I think they're fine. They're ready for playoffs. I mean, they could get sharper, obviously, with some of the young players they have, but that's about it, and they will. So there you go there. At number 3, we got Northridge. Kodey said the Grizz still won this past week, but I was expecting a little more of a whooping of Mountain View. So I'll park them at the 3 spot, but they'll have as good of a chance as anyone to be the number 1 team by the end of this next week here, because they will play Roosevelt on Thursday, which myself and Kodey will be at. So there you go there. Yeah, I don't have anything really else to add to that. I mean, they took care of business. That's what matters. They're going to have to do it again this next week. Now, moving on, at number 2, we got Green Mountain. Kodey said, what a quality comeback win. The start was shaky, but this Green Mountain offensive and defensive lines showed me that they're high caliber, and the ball control they had in the second half was mad impressive. There were still some questionable moments, but they've earned the 2 spot for me with their most important win of the season, end quote. Yeah, absolutely agreed. I mean, I've had Green Mountain at 2. Look, this is an experienced squad. They didn't lose any starters from last year. They're returning basically the same exact team, and so, with that experience and all that all these guys have, not only playing with each other, but against other teams, that's going to be huge. I think that composure really helped them come back and beat Evergreen that kind of looked like they were about to run away with it. So there you go there. That's a good win for Green Mountain. And then at number 1 for like a month in a row or whatever it is, we got Roosevelt. Kodey said another day, another trial, and another successful win over a top 10 team. Another one is on the docket, but Roosevelt has continued to not waver as the top dog in 3A, end quote. Yeah, Roosevelt, they've proven themselves over and over again. They'll have another chance to prove themselves against Northridge on Thursday, so we'll see what happens. But once again, your top 10 in 3A goes on. At number 10, Frederick. At number 9, George Washington. Tied at 7th, we got Res, Christian, and Evergreen. At 6, we got Pueblo East. 5, we got Durango. 4, Lutheran. 3, Northridge. 2, Green Mountain. And at number 1 for over a month now is Roosevelt. Boom, there you go. Let's go ahead and go up into 4A here. We have a couple things changing up here. Let's go ahead and start at 10 here. And at 10, we have a new 10 team here. That is Heritage. Kodey said going to put the Eagles in here following another top 10 team's loss. That's Pueblo West. And backing up their upset win over Fruta with a thrashing of Adams City. Their ascension is quite the surprise to me, but this young core has taken huge strides this season. Yes, absolutely agreed. I mean, Heritage, they beat Fruta. I didn't think that was that big of a deal because Heritage was a quality team. And so we're going to go ahead and welcome them here in the top 10. There you go. They're at 10. At number 9, we got Mesa Ridge. They took care of business, so we don't really have anything to say about that. But they also move up here, I believe. So there you go. They're at 9. At 8, we got Vista Ridge. Kodey says about here's what Kodey has to say about Vista. He said Dorman put on another performance that you could call perfect, going over 500 yards and 6 tutties to no picks. Is why he's the best in the state at quarterback. The real impressive thing here is that the Vista Ridge defense held Sam Bears to only 72 yards after he has been doing whatever he wants all season. Huge plus defending the run that well, since the top teams in 4A are lethal running the ball, end quote. Yep, absolutely agreed. Braden Dorman, he's on a historic track here. I said this before the season for Vista Ridge's season preview. You can look that up. It was months ago, but I said Vista Ridge, for them to win, Braden Dorman is going to have to play great. And for them to make a deep run in the playoffs, he's going to have to be elite every week. And he's going to need some help, and he has got it with his receiving core between Keyshawn and BB. And then this defense, they got to at least be decent. So there you go. And they were in this game against Air Academy. Moving on, though, at 7, we got Montrose. They took care of business against Falcons, so we don't have anything to say here. At 6, though, we got Fruta Monument. Kodey said a pick 6 was a nice touch on a big win over Grand Junction, end quote. Yep, they took care of business there, so there you go. At 5, we got Ponderosa. Kodey said some health and quality of a opponent helps the Mustangs back into the win column as they look to stabilize down the stretch of the season. End quote. Yeah, I think they're fine. I mean, Stryker obviously was a little under the weather, we heard, in that last week against in that game against Denver South. So, you know, he was obviously healthy for this game for him to throw over 100 yards and rush over 100 yards. So there you go. Moving on, though, we have a tie at third, and we don't have anything to say about either of them, but it's Loveland and Denver South here. They both won, took care of business, while Denver South got that forfeit, but still took care of business. Then at 2, we got Broomfield. Kodey says, huge shout out to CT on his first career varsity start, and shout out to the Eagles, who remain undefeated but will be transitioning into a league that seems more imposing now than it did at the beginning of the year, with Freedom Monument and Heritage licking their chops after they dispatch Adams City, of course. End quote. Yeah, absolutely agreed there. It was good to see, you know, CT get up in there. Like I said, Cola Crew got a week off, or well, I don't want to say got a week off, but you know, he got some rest this week with that game and whatnot. So that's definitely good to hear. They're gonna need him healthy and at his best moving forward. But it's also good to know that his backup could definitely play, which, you know, here at the podcast we knew, but maybe the entire state didn't quite know yet. But now they do. Moving on though, at number 1 for the, oh my God, 6th or 7th straight week here. Over a month at number 1 is Palmer Ridge in a game. This is what Kodey has to say about it, by the way. In a game without Gator Robinson, the Bears keep on rolling and are staying diligent week in and week out, which is a championship caliber mentality to have. End quote. Yes, agreed. 21-0 over Pueblo West. Yes, it was kind of a close game there, but they were playing away. They were playing without Gator. I mean, they still won 21-0 here. They really didn't give Pueblo West much to be happy about. So there you go there. But our top 10 here in 4A after week 7, Heritage at 10, 9 Mesa Ridge, 8 Vista Ridge, 7 Montrose, 6 Freedom Monument, 5 Ponderosa. Tied at 3, we have Loveland and Denver South. 2 is Broomfield. And at number 1 for over a month now, Palmer Ridge. Alright, now let's go ahead and talk 5A. We definitely have a shakeup here. So let's get this thing started. At number 10, we got Mountain Vista. Kodey says, these Eagles bounce back after a heartbreaker to Thunder Ridge in the pouring rain, and it showed that they can play into the final whistle and win. Being down as much as 33-14 in the 4th, Vista rallied and even pulled ahead 34-33 before Rock Canyon hit a 45-yard field goal that should have iced the game. But Mountain Vista wins on a Hail Mary that was Modreski's 6th touchdown toss of the day, and good enough to land them in my top 10 for now. Yeah, absolutely agreed. I was ready to put Mountain Vista in the top 10 last week when they're up 21-0 against Thunder Ridge. By the way, end quote, after he said they're in my top 10 for now. But anyways, yeah, I was ready to put Mountain Vista in my top 10 after they were up 21-0 on Thunder Ridge, and that's a game they should have won. They're going to learn from it, though. And they did, and they beat a good Rock Canyon team, and so there you go. Mountain Vista here at 10. At number 9, though, we got Rock Canyon. Kodey said, not going to move down RC for losing on a Hail Mary to a solid Mountain Vista squad who is making their appearance on my power rankings. It might even be a good thing to lose and have that fuel in time to fix mistakes before battling Valor Christian this upcoming week. End quote. Yes, I'm going to have to agree with that one. I mean, look, hey, you can't, they lost on one play at the end. That's what it came down to. And next, you can't let that happen next time, obviously. And so they're going to learn from it, and they're going to get better. For now, I still think they're a top 10 team, so I agree with Kodey. Now, at 7, we have 2 teams tied here. It's Fairview and Pine Creek. Let's start with Pine Creek. Kodey says, the manner in which Regis beat Pine Creek is discouraging. Coop throwing 3 interceptions puts a dent in my confidence in Pine Creek, and they're really going to have to show me something, end quote. Yeah, I agree, man. I was like, wow, man, damn. Call me Drewski, because that's exactly how I felt when Pine Creek just did not get anything going at all on offense. Defensively, they did fine. They gave the run game some issues here. They allowed 2 big plays over the pass and whatnot, but they also got 2 interceptions. Shout out to Ramon Pacheco making a great one, and Justice Nicholson getting a good one as well. And so, I don't know. It's not like Pine Creek can't play with them, but they're going to have to be better on offense and more than just a running team to be able to beat them in the future, or really to beat any of these top 5, top 10 teams in the future. It's not enough to just be able to run the ball. So we'll see. They still have a relatively young quarterback there, so it's a regular season, so it's going to happen now. Move forward, learn from it. That's what you have to do if you want to make a run at state, plain and simple. At 7, though, tied here, we have Fairview. Kodey said after clutching a close win and eating up the last 4 minutes of the game to seal it, the Knights sit here at 7 with their biggest prove-it game, with their biggest prove-it win so far this season, and give themselves some breathing room out of the top 10, or out of the 10 spot here in the top 10, end quote. So there you go. That's Fairview. Absolutely agreed. Almost got upset, but they didn't. Win's a win, so they move up here. At 6, we got Regis Jesuit. Kodey said, what an authoritative win over the team they shared a spot with. That was a real welcome to what this league will feel like, and Regis Jesuit puts them in a prime spot for a bye following that big-time win, end quote. Yeah, Regis played great. Had a little bit of a slow start on offense, through some bad picks and whatnot. Settled down, though, and found a way to win. Their defense really helped them out there. So, there you go. At 5, we got Thunder Ridge. Kodey said, the boat continues to row for the Grizzlies, who will probably be a whopping 8-0 heading into Valor, end quote. Yeah, agreed. We'll see what happens, but Valor, they're looking pretty good now. They're looking pretty good, so we'll see what happens going into that game. At 4, though, we have Columbine. Kodey said, not going to punish this Columbine squad that lost in the final minute against a great team, but that is a little discouraging to see them get out-muscled at the end, since muscle was the brand of these Rebels and their best argument for competing for state, end quote. Yeah, I'm not worried about them. Ralston Valley, they're just one of those teams that will continue to upset top teams here in 5A. Maybe even in the playoffs too. And so for Columbine, hey, you got to learn from it. You got to play better on defense, that's what it comes down to. Well, you got to win on defense at the end. If you're going to be a running team and if you're going to center your brand about defense, you got to win on defense. And so that's what it will come down to moving forward. Not worried about them. They're basically locked in, though. Tied at 2, though, we have Ralston Valley and Valor. Let's start with Valor. Kodey said, took care of business against the other irrelevant team in their league, but it's time to really dial it in and see what Valor is made of, end quote. They'll be playing Rock Canyon this next week, so that's what he meant there. Absolutely agreed. Asher Weiner has slowly come on and has played very efficient football as a passer and runner, so you got to look out for him. I love that they're kind of making it a little bit more quarterback-centric here, while Gabe Sawchuk still does his thing and the defense do their thing as well. So there you go. Now tied at 2 with them is Ralston Valley. Kodey said a crazy affair where every point counted, including a third quarter where a safety was the only score. Ralston Valley got the ball down 4 with under 4 minutes to go and drove right down the field when Bonallo's stellar season continued with a nice cut and burst to score. Beating the number 2 team and the strength of schedule they played lands them at the number 2 spot for me, not to mention that their success on God is a good thing to have heading into the rest of the season and postseason, end quote. So I actually had Valor in my personal rankings ranked at 2 and Valley at 3, and so that's why they're tied for 2 in our PMC rankings here. So there you go there. It will be interesting to see what happens, moving forward and whatnot, as they, finish the regular season and head into playoffs. But at number 1, for forever now, because they've been at 1 since preseason, the only team at 1 in preseason is Cherry Creek. They beat 5A Smoky Hill in league play, And, I mean, not just because of that, but they're at number 1 for a reason. They've been dominant. Their only loss is that one to that out-of-state team from Ohio, which is a very good team that'll probably make a run at state in Ohio. So there you go there. But Cherry Creek here at number 1, I think that's obvious. It's interesting to see where this quarterback comp is going because it looks like they are finally settling on a quarterback, and it might be the freshman phenom that is Brady Vodka, who played great against Smoky Hill. So we'll see what happens. But for now, Cherry Creek stays at 1 with a heck of a team they have there. So there you go. Now, the 5A Week 7 power rankings goes at 10, Mountain Vista, 9, Rock Canyon, tied at 7, Fairview, Pine Creek, 6, Regis Jesuit, 5, Thunder Ridge, 4, Columbine, tied at 2, we got Valor Christian and Ralston Valley. And then at number 1, we got Cherry Creek. So there you go there. Alrighty, and that'll basically wrap up this episode. Thank you for rocking with us. If you want to see updates, see content, all that great stuff, go ahead and follow us on social media at Playmakers Corner. That's Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and TikTok as well. We'll be posting highlights of games that we attend in person there, so you can follow us there. And then go ahead and subscribe to us on Twitter, or not Twitter. You can follow us there, though, but subscribe to us on YouTube, Twitch, and then wherever you listen to podcasts as well. We really appreciate y'all's support. But yeah, hey, we're going into the playoffs. This is the last month of the regular season. A lot of great things happening, so be on the lookout there. We'll be attending some great matchups here that'll help decide the playoffs. And then also girls high school flag football, last week of the season, last tournament of the season is October 15th at the UC Health Training Center. That's the Broncos facility. That's this Saturday. Go and support these fantastic athletes. The very first state champion will be crowned. So there you go. But until then, we will see y'all later. Peace.